Right. There we go. Now we're live. Hello, everyone.
Yay!
Anyone that's watching.
Hello.
Oh,
Don't know
can
what's
you hear
happening with.
me?
Oh, there we go. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear
Okay.
you.
Great.
So usually when I do my lives, I just start. I mean, most people do this. Just start off with saying like everyone explaining who they are, if they've got BookTube, Bookstagram, all that stuff. I'm thinking also maybe say a little bit about what sort of genres you like to read. Sarah, you can start.
Okay. I'm Sarah. I have a booktube and I also have a bookstagram. And I would say my most read genres are probably mystery thrillers and romance. I feel like I read a lot of those. But yeah. And then just because I'm on booktube and bookstagram, I'm getting brainwashed and I'm starting to read a lot of YA fantasy. It's just happening. So as it does. So
Hallie.
Yeah, I'm Hallie from Let Hallie Read. I probably should have done my actual channel name, but I didn't think about that. But yeah, I have a booktube and I've got a bookstagram and I read a little bit of everything. You'll probably hear me talk more about classics on my channel. I read a lot of classics, but I also read probably just a little bit of everything. I don't think there's a genre. Chloe, I think you like horror. I am not a huge horror fan, but we do have a cat named Church because my husband loves the Pet Cemetery. So we have our
cute.
He's a great cat.
Hopefully the same thing won't happen to your cat though.
No, hopefully not. Hopefully not. But yeah, I read a little bit of everything, and of course, just like Sarah, BookTube, Bookstagram has brainwashed me. I've been doing a ton of fantasy, YA fantasy, adult fantasy, a ton of it. So about the same.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Leah from Team with Leah. I have a booktube channel like everybody else here and also bookstagram. And I mostly read fantasy. I started out with YA fantasy. Now I read more fantasy for adults and I try to read like more genres by now also, like a little bit of romance and especially sci-fi lately.
That's so good. I need to get into sci-fi, honestly.
Sci-fi, I feel like, has a ton of like different subgenres within it, and so it is very hard to find like that group of sci-fi that you like. Like I love time travel sci-fi, but I'm not as much into like the space time travel, like space sci-fi. So
yeah.
Yeah, like
right, I didn't want to appear antisocial or anything. I was just posting that we were live on my Instagram. Now I promise I will look at the screen. So what sort of, if you guys do read sci-fi, what sort of subgenres do you like the best? Because I personally love dystopia.
Dystopia, time travel. That's usually mine.
Yeah, I like Skyward, for example, and I'm currently reading Aurora Burning, which is the second book in the Aurora Rising series. So I started out with the really like easy sci-fi stuff because it's all like YA sci-fi, and I'm trying to get into Dune one day, but we'll see. I'm a little bit afraid of Dune because it's really thick and also daunting. So yeah.
I just bought Dune the other day, a while ago, and I feel the same way as you. I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to start this. I'm a little nervous about it.
Yeah, I feel like I should probably start with YA sci-fi. I've only ever read like Blake Crouch, so like sci-fi thriller type things. I just feel like I might be too dumb for sci-fi, to be honest. I feel like I might be too confused all the time. So it's scary. Honestly.
Yeah, I remember reading Ender's Game and maybe I need to go back to Ender's Game, but I just remember that one being really confusing because it kind of takes place in space and the language was just a little over my head. Which is funny for someone who reads classics and that language is super hard to understand. So, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I just feel like I would start it and have to reread the same page 50 million times because I'm not understanding what it's saying.
Yeah.
Do you read sci-fi, Chloe?
Well, not as much anymore. I used to, I mean, I obviously read all like the YA trilogy sci-fi dystopia that sort of, I think that after all like Divergent and the Hunger Games and everything, it sort of put a damper on the whole dystopia thing because people thought it was only like YA trilogies, whereas I know that there's a lot of really good classics and like newer stuff coming out. And then otherwise I've read the Lunar Chronicles, and then like not much sci-fi because I do like sci-fi and fantasy. I've also read Ender's Game, and I did really enjoy that. I don't read as much sci-fi and fantasy. I'm more like a thriller, horror, like speculative fiction kind of person.
Yeah, I think I think any genre within YA is always a good introduction into anything adult. Like if you want to do sci-fi, start with YA sci-fi. If you want to do fantasy, start with YA fantasy. It's just always a good introduction into that. But then you get a little bit older. Like I'm at that age where I feel, even though, like you said, Sarah, like BookTube and Bookstagram is like make me want to read YA, even though that's not really my age group anymore. But it does make me want to go more into adult stuff too.
Yeah. I think the good thing too with, I feel, at least for me, reading some more YA, I feel like YA is getting a little bit more mature in its writing too. Some of the books, because I've read some books and I'm like, this is definitely geared towards like a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
But then you read some, and I think because now it's so widely known that people of all ages read YA, I think they're starting to become a bit more mature in the writing and the content of YA books, I feel.
Yeah, I agree.
Got some comments, but mainly from my family members. This is my sister. She was on my live last time. I love her, but she's kind of annoying. So,
is she older or younger?
She's 8.
Oh my god!
Yeah. So everyone, when you see her for like 2 hours out of like however many hours I've spent with her, everyone thinks she's super cute, and she is. Like she's because she has siblings that are all like quite a bit older than her. She's really good at switching between doing like the baby thing and then being like a teenager. So
that fun age.
Listen, I love that. That's so cute.
My little brother. Yeah, my little brother is like 15, and he's always texting me like, did you see how many more subscribers you have? And I'm like, yes, thank you, Bob. Like, it's just how cute it is.
This is my cousin, and he's the one that does that for me.
Yeah. Just the moral support they give is just a precious. I'm like, yeah, Bob, thank you.
I know, it's so good. That's so funny. I'm the young little sister, so I'm the annoying one.
Leah, do you have any siblings?
No, I only have I have like 2 half sisters, but from my father's side, but we don't really know each other, so I'm all alone.
Aw, we'll be your sisters.
I know. Listen,
one is older, I think like 4 years older, and the other one is like 18 right now.
Okay.
So a little bit older.
Yeah.
Yeah, my sister, she's 4 years older than me. And then I have a brother. I have a half brother that, I'm not super close to either, but he's like a lot older than me. He's like over 10 years older than me, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've got 4 brothers, no sisters. All I ever wanted in life was sisters. And then my dad got remarried, and I thought, okay, maybe I'm going to get my sisters. And then, nope, stepmom had 2 boys.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
I love them, but it's weird because the older ones, I'm the second in the lineup, but the 2 older ones, we grew up together, but the younger 2, I like watched them grow up, and I kind of like helped raise them. So it's kind of it's a different dynamic with 2 sets of brothers.
That's so nice though. I've always wanted a brother. I just like a brother that I'm like really close with. So you always want what you don't have, you know?
Right. Yeah. Well, and if you do have it, like Chloe, you're like, sisters drive me crazy. So
yeah. That's so funny.
Right. When do you guys fancy doing a reading sprint first? And how long, like, if you guys have never been on reading sprints, but if you have seen them, how long do you tend to like to go for? Because I know some people go for more like 20 minutes, others go for like 40 minutes.
I'm not picky, but the ones I normally see like closer to the 20-minute just because then my attention span just goes way out. So, but I don't mind whatever you guys want to do.
Yeah, whatever you feel is best, Chloe, since you're the one that's done these more than we have.
The professional.
Yeah, we'll let you decide.
Professional. I'm still waiting to get paid for it though.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. Maybe we could go for bang in the middle then. Go for 30 minutes.
Sure.
That sounds fair.
And then maybe in like 9 minutes time. It's a bit of an odd time to start out, but like 10 to go until 20 past.
That sounds good.
Yeah. Then we have another 9 minutes to chat.
What are you guys all planning on reading?
Oh yeah, I forgot to ask that.
Well, I was going to have you guys help me decide what I'm going to read. So, and I think, Sarah, you know of one of these because I saw it on your Instagram. And I think you might know the other one too, because I think I saw it on your Instagram, but I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember. But one of them is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn.
Oh, yes.
I like the idea of like this old Hollywood actress type feel. Like I love like that whole, is it like kind of, does it give you like that old Hollywood vibe?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I think you start in like the late 50s and then you go into like the 80s. So you're like in that whole time period.
Yeah, I feel like I would like this one.
Impeccable.
And then my other one is my book of the month, which is People We Meet on Vacation.
I'm reading that right now.
Okay.
Love it.
I don't do a lot of, I would think this is like contemporary, right? Would I be correct in kind of
I think it probably is because I read her other one and it was like there's obviously a romance like line to it, but it is more of a contemporary romance.
Yeah,
I think.
Which I don't read a lot of, but I've heard great things about this one, and this was one of the ones on the list that I thought, well, this is the one that I probably have the most interest in based off of all the ones that were an option. So
yeah, I'm about like 100 pages into that one right now, and I'm enjoying it. Yeah, I think her tend to be romances, but yeah, a lot more of like contemporary. There's a lot of other aspects in it because I know I haven't read Beach Read, but I know that Beach Read was like that as well.
Yeah.
So, I feel like my vote is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo because I love that. It's one of my favorite books. So
okay, I think I'm gonna go with it. I think I'm gonna go with it. The premise sounded really cool. So yes, I'm gonna read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
Yes. Oh yeah!
Oh, I wasn't aware of this. It was on 99 when we
get to 100 already. How exciting!
How exciting is that? It's a grind, guys. It is a grind.
It really is. Honestly,
well, it's the same as everything else. You see, some people like just automatically skyrocket. Like I was, there's another booktuber that I watch who does more like academic sort of things. You know, like I read Taylor Swift's favorite books, and then she sort of analyzes them. She's been on BookTube for a month, and she's got like 40,000.
Is it Uncarly?
Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I can see why it makes sense, but like it's also that balance between obviously having really great content, which she does, and like having a really good personality, but also like lucking out a bit.
Yeah.
Because there's some people that are really great that just obviously it's the same with everything, like music and acting and everything.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, there's always like a luck factor in it in some way.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be so careful not to compare yourself and get down and remember. I mean, I think when I was watching all like the BookTube newbie tags, I think everyone was kind of saying the same thing of I just want to do this because I love it and I don't want to get bogged down in like the popularity contest.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's so important to keep a level head. But congratulations on 100.
I know, that is so exciting.
It's so exciting.
So it's like this is also like a celebratory live.
Yes.
Right. Did we want to carry on with what books we're planning on reading?
Yes. Yeah.
Sure.
I'm like, I can go next. Okay, so I'm reading People We Meet on Vacation right now, but I think because everyone's been telling me to read it, I'm gonna read Legendborn. I'm gonna start Legendborn.
I love that book.
Yay! So, I know, because you guys keep telling me to, like, oh my god, it's so good. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start it today.
Yeah, it's really good. It's super fast paced, and I love like every chapter of it.
I'm really excited, honestly, because I've heard like not one bad thing about it yet. Everyone I've seen has like absolutely loved it, so I'm really excited.
I think the only negative thing I've seen is it's very, very quick paced, but I like that. Like that's not a bad thing to me. But people who are, because like all the events happen within a week and it does go by quickly, but I didn't mind that. So if you don't mind that, I think you're good.
Yeah. I feel like I'll like it. From like what I've heard people say, I think I would really like it.
You're about to go out of room. Dude, sit. Sit. This is Link. He's named after Legend of Zelda.
Oh, cute.
How cute. He just wants to hang out.
He does. Wants all the attention.
That's so cute.
All right, next book.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if you can see it because I'm reading Aurora Burning.
Okay.
Yeah, the second part of Aurora Rising, and I got it from my library, and I have like 400 pages left, and I have to return it in 24 hours. So let's see if I can do
it. I know. Listen, you can do it. You're just gonna grind today.
And I guess that brings it back to me. I'm going to start Heartstopper, which I'm really excited about because obviously anyone that sort of reads more contemporary stuff is like, this is one of the best graphic novels. It's supposed to be really cute and stuff. And I'm reading it for a video that I've got planned. So I'm very excited for that.
Oh, that's exciting. I bought it, but I haven't read it yet. Because I don't know, I don't really read graphic novels, so I don't know why I'm nervous, because it's really just pictures, but I don't know. I'm nervous to start it.
I've heard great things about it.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about it too.
I haven't heard about it at all. What's it about?
So basically, it's about the two people on the front cover. It's set in, I think it's a British author, so it's set in like an English school, secondary school, which is like the equivalent to like high school, I guess, at their age, probably. I think they're like at the end of their school career. And it's basically just, I think it's a bisexual boy and then like a gay boy, and then they're friends, but then it sort of develops into a romance. So it's supposed to be really nice. There's 4 volumes, so it'll be interesting to see like what they do across the 4 volumes.
Every time I've like heard people talk about it, because they're like, oh yeah, it's just like a cute love story. I'm like, how are there 4 volumes? It just seems like so many. Like, what do they do? But that'll be good. I think that'll be a fun one. She wants you to go home.
Yeah, I've just come back from visiting because I had to come back from my exams and everything, which she sort of clamped onto me just before I left when I was at the train station. I'm sure she'll forget about it in a couple of days.
That's so cute. I love that.
So I found, so Chloe and I talked yesterday because I lived in the UK for a year. So anytime I meet someone British, I'm like, where did you live? Because I act like I'm the only American that's ever lived overseas in my life. But I'm not. And so obviously you don't have to tell me like where, like your address or anything, but Sarah, like where kind of in the country are you from?
I'm living in Seattle right now, but I'm from San Diego, California. Okay. Yeah, but living here now, so
quite the difference. Where are you? I'm from, as you can tell, Oklahoma. That's our state flag up there. I'm from Oklahoma, but I've got family in Texas. They live in Houston. My dad and stepmom live in Houston, and I've lived in Louisiana. I've lived in the UK, but Oklahoma's just home, so I gravitated back here.
So many places.
Yeah. Then I settled down. Leah, where are you from?
I'm from Germany.
Germany.
Yeah, and I'm still in Germany.
I never would have guessed.
I've been in London before, and it's really pretty there. But I only was at the touristy places.
I definitely want to go visit the UK for sure.
Yeah.
Where are you from, Chloe?
So originally I'm from the southeast of the UK, or like the southeast of England is probably better to refer to it. And then otherwise, then I moved to Denmark when I was 14, I think, because I've got Danish family and just loads of different reasons. So I'm still, oh God, that wasn't supposed to come up. I'm still here for uni because it's free. I'm basically just scrounging off of the of the system, and then I'm thinking of either moving back to the UK. Also, it's just like I'm studying medicine, so it's like a long time to be studying for just to be studying, and like if I was going to pay for it, that would obviously add up and everything. And then I'm still not sure. I might end up living here for the rest of my life. Otherwise, I'll move back to the UK. And I've also considered moving to the US, but it depends on like the political climate, and especially when it comes to medicine, because I'm not a big fan of the medical system. And I feel like it would sort of go against my principles if I worked there and sort of fed into the system.
Yeah,
it's fair enough.
That's so cool,
even when I lived over in the UK, getting used to their medical system was even different for me, just because of what I was so used to. It was it was a ride. But I went over there as a student because I went to the University of Kent in Canterbury, and so it was kind of easy for me because I got medical from just being a student and didn't really have to worry about it too much. So, but it was wonderful, and I can't wait to go back. Loved it so much.
I definitely want to visit. I want to go really bad. I watch Love Island all the time. My favorite show.
It's not a great example.
So I'm just like, I want to go so bad. Sounds like so much fun.
When I lived there, that wasn't the popular show. It was the what was it, Chloe? It was just like another trashy reality show.
Howie, the only way is Essex.
I was gonna say,
so many.
It's okay. We've got horrible reality shows over here that probably make us look so stupid.
I think that all the time.
Yeah.
I love reality TV shows. Like the worse it is, the better. They're so entertaining. Yeah. And I watch all the time, like The Bachelor and all that. And I'm like, this is embarrassing. It's all just making us look so embarrassing, honestly.
All right, should we get reading?
Okay. Oh my gosh, I didn't even notice the time.
Let's do it. I'm going to mute myself while I'm doing this.
I know, I should probably mute myself too.
Where do you guys mute yourself?
It should be at the very bottom. It says mute, stop cam mic on my end anyways.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. How did everyone's reading go?
Not too bad.
I went good. I read 24 pages, which is good progress. You're right. There's already like everything's already happening. I was like, Jesus Christ, we're just going right into it. Okay. But I like it so far. I feel like with fantasies, I don't like it when there's too much introductory part in the beginning of it. I'd rather like learn the magic system as things are happening rather than just being told it. So I feel like I'm already enjoying this.
I think urban fantasy is perfect for that.
Yeah, when I first got that book, it's a big book, and so I was a little nervous. So I was like,
yeah, and the writing is very small. I was literally like, I'm like reading it like this. It's so small. I was like, oh, this is big.
Yeah. It goes by so fast. I'm also I also got on page 24 of my book. Sarah, from your videos, I kind of feel like you and I have a similar like reading speed, because like I'm happy if I can make it to like 4 books a month. I'm like, me too. Like I love it.
Yeah.
These people who can get like to 15, I'm like, y'all are insane.
Yeah.
I also made it 24, so it's I mean just started. There's not too much happening. It covers more of the journalist who's going in what the actress wants her to do, but I am getting that old Hollywood. I was thinking of like different famous old Hollywood actresses as I was reading it, like Marilyn Monroe and Bette Davis and all those people. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna like this a lot. So.
Yeah. Once it gets into because the beginning I feel like is a bit not slow, but it's a lot of setup for the book. And I feel like once you actually get into her actual story, it's really good.
Yeah, and then there's that one part where like they have they have that page. And it's all these different people commenting on the blog, and people are like trolling her and saying horrible things. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I read all the time, is just people trolling everyone else without actually knowing their lives. So I thought that was a kind of an interesting element that made it very realistic.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you're enjoying it already.
Yeah, I'm excited to keep going.
How did you do, Leah?
I only read like 15 pages, but I'm reading in English. And since English is not my first language, I'm a little bit slower. But it's also like the second book, and it's really nice to like get to like then we get to know the people a little bit more now, especially the characters that we haven't seen so much yet in the first book.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and Aurora Burning is also really, really fast-paced. So if you're looking for like an easy, fast-paced sci-fi book, then I would recommend it too.
I'm gonna put that on my TBR. I'm gonna add that.
I think it's so cool when it's really cool when people read in a language that's not their first language, because I refuse to read in anything that's not English.
Yeah.
So
I can't speak another language, so
yeah, like I can't read in another language, so I wouldn't be able to read it. So it's very impressive.
Yeah. It's often like the translated books that like get translated in German like take like 1 or 2 years longer than if you first get it in the first language, like in English, when they're published in English. So if you want to be like up to the hype a little bit, you have to read it in English most of the time.
Yeah,
I didn't think about that. Yeah, that's very true, I guess.
Yeah.
Do the translated ones also tend to be more expensive? Because I find that when English books are translated to Danish, they're like double the price here.
No, like the German books normally are like more expensive than the English books, because in Germany we have like a price that you can't change really. You can't even put a sale on a German book, but on an English book you can, and that's why they're most often cheaper than the German ones actually.
That's so interesting. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Chloe, how's yours?
Chloe?
I mean, bearing in mind this is a graphic novel, I got to page 190 something. So I'm nearly done with it. But it's just like I like the idea of graphic novels, and I think it's really cool. And like, I'm not one of those really snobby people that's like, if it's a graphic novel, it's not reading. But you obviously don't get as much of like, it doesn't feel like there's as much of a story there because it takes, like, it just goes really quickly. So like, there's 100 pages that's like over the span of a month, but it feels like it should really only be a couple of days, which is just one thing that I'm not too keen on. But otherwise, it's quite a cute story.
Yeah. Do you usually read graphic novels?
I think I've read a couple, like I've read 2 that were in a series and I've read 1 that was another standalone. And otherwise, like the first time I read a graphic novel was in February, and this is the only one that I own physically because it's just, again, if it only takes like an hour to read it, it feels like a bit of a waste of money to like buy it and then read it for an hour. And then obviously, like, I mean, if you really like it, you can reread it and stuff. But I tend to buy like actual novels physically and then just read graphic novels like on like an e-reader or whatever, like my phone.
Yeah. I have a harder time with graphic novels sometimes.
Yeah.
I think it's because of all the images. It's very like overwhelming to me.
Yeah. Well, I feel I'm a very like character driven person. And with characters, I like to see, you know, their development and their interactions with other people. And I don't know, I feel like with a graphic novel, it's since you're mainly looking at pictures, I feel like it's more actions based, if that makes sense. I don't know. Yeah, definitely want to get into them though.
Yeah, but I also read a lot of graphic novels and comics from my library, which I would really recommend so that you don't have to spend like 100 euros just to get like 5 comics.
Yeah, I need to do that. I need to get into it.
I read a couple and they've been good. So
Mm-hmm.
I read Watchmen. I didn't finish it because it was just a little bit harder for me to get into. And then I read Neil Gaiman's Sandman ones, which are very dark, like very dark. And so, of course, you know, it's dark content, it's dark images. You're just like, oh my gosh, what am I reading? Like, oh, but those were very good too. I would recommend the Neil Gaiman Sandman graphic novels.
Actually,
The Saga graphic novels are also very good. Do you know the Saga comics?
Oh, the Saga. I've heard of them.
Yeah, like they're really weird, but also really, really good. And I love all of the characters there. So if you want to check that out, then definitely do because it's so good.
Yeah, I need to. I know. I saw your video and I was like, I need to continue it because I read the first volume and then I got that from the library and then I just didn't continue it. I don't know why. I feel like with those, at least I feel like the first volume, yeah, it was over so fast. So then I feel like you have to like binge read it kind of.
Yeah.
In order to like really get into it and like keep with the whole story.
Yeah, I got like the library edition from my library and it always has like 4 volumes or so contained in it. So so it's a little bit more that you can read if you get like these big bind-ups.
Yeah.
But it's really a binge-worthy comic series for sure.
Yeah, I definitely need to read that. I know I'm waiting for my library to open up again because I want to go get physical library books, but my library's still not open.
Not even for like a curbside or anything like that?
I think they do curbside, but honestly, I went on the website and I was thoroughly confused and I did not know how to do it. And I was like, and also too, I feel like when I go to the library, I'm a browser. I don't really go there with a specific book in mind, and I'll just kind of see what sounds interesting to me. So then if I don't have in my head, oh, I want to pick up this book, then doing curbside is not helpful for me.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Do you guys feel like you tend to read more books that you guys buy, or do you guys use your library a lot?
I use my library for audiobooks. When I do read audiobooks, I don't listen to a lot of them because I have a hard time listening to books and like keeping up with them because my mind just wanders and it's like, oh, like 30 minutes have gone by and I have no idea where we're at. But I have started borrowing from that. And then books, I don't know. It's a really good question because recently I want to grow my personal library, so I've been buying a lot of books just for that purpose, because for a long time I didn't have the room to build my library. And now that, you know, we have a new house and all that, like, oh, I can actually buy books. But at the same time, I don't want to buy books that I don't think I'll ever go back to. If I think, oh, I'm going to read this book again someday, then I'll keep it. But lately I've been really trying to pick and choose, okay, will I actually come back? So for example, I'm reading a lot of middle grade right now because I'm going to do a middle grade recommendation video, but I don't see myself like going back to those middle grade books. I'm doing it for a specific video. So I've been borrowing those from the library because I know I'm just, you know, when I have my own kid and they get to be that age, we'll go buy the books, but personally, I'm not going to read them again. So that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like same, honestly. I try to read like a lot of books from the library, and I only try to get the ones that I really, really love. For example, I read like the first 9 volumes of Saga right now, and I just bought myself the first volume because I know that I really love it. Yeah. And I
don't tend to use the library much, just because we don't have like the library. So where I used to live, the library was like, it was like a smaller like village town kind of library. So they didn't have very many English books, and it just like, it was a bit of a hassle to get there and then get back and everything. And now I've moved into the city, so I'm hoping that once everything opens up, because it's still closed, that I'll be able to go and use the library.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. Right now, the apartment that I live in, because we just moved, it's so tiny. So I have one tiny little like shelf in my closet that has my books. So that's why I don't even have like a nice background or anything of like a big bookcase. So I read a lot from the library, but I'm the same way. I don't want to buy things that I'm not gonna love. So I'll typically, like, if I really love a book that I listen to on audio or that I get from the library, then I'll go buy it because I'm like, oh, I really love this book. I'll probably reread it, type of thing. But yeah, I get a lot of library books.
I recently had the idea of like, you know, because I've seen so, you know, you get into this Bookstagram booktube world and you see all these books that are so hyped. So it just makes you want to go buy them. And then it's too late that you're like, wait a minute, what if I don't like this book? I just assume I'm going to like it because everyone's hyping it, but that doesn't mean I'm going to like it. And so I do that. And I want to start doing that for series too. Anytime I start a new series, just like borrow the first book. And if I'm loving the first book, then I'll actually buy the series. I'm just trying to be more careful about that. Just for my own consumption reasons, but also because I do want to support our local libraries. That's really, so yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, recently I made a video where I talked about like book series or books in general that I didn't like at all. And those are all books that were really hyped on BookTube, and most of them I got from a library, and I'm so glad that I didn't buy them for myself. So.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of like really, really hyped books, I feel like, are very like hit or miss. It's either you absolutely love it or it's just not for you at all.
Our tastes are just so different, I feel, you know, and I think especially on BookTube, when, you know, someone doesn't like the same book you like, you can't take it personally. Like it has nothing to do with you as a person, but sometimes it feels that way because you're like, oh, that book meant so much to me and you don't like it, so you're attacking me. And I'm like, no, you're not attacking me, you just don't like the same book as I do. And that's not a big deal. But people get very, very sensitive about books that, you know, maybe not other people like. So.
Yeah. Just it's so subjective, you know? Because there's certain like aspects of books that you may really, really love and that other people just absolutely hate, you know?
Yeah. Depending on the subject matter and the writing. I'm about to read Sarah J. Maas for the first time this summer. I'm going to do my first reading vlog, reading Sarah J. Maas. I never even heard of her before I got onto BookTube. Never even heard of her. I've heard of Cassandra Clare because she was popular when I was around high school. But yeah, so I'm trying to go in with just no expectations because those series has been hyped so much. And I'm trying to go in not knowing if I'm going to like it or not. So I'm just like straight, not trying to overthink it.
Yeah.
I think that's what gets you in trouble too, is when you go into a hype book and you're like, okay, I'm going to like this. I'm going to assume I'm going to like it. And then you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what series are you going to start with?
I'm going to start with A Court of Thorns and Roses.
I'm planning on reading that this month and doing a reading vlog on it because I did try to read it. I think like last year I started it, and then it was one of those things where I just started it and I just never picked it back up again. But I remember reading it, I was already kind of like, ooh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I heard the second one. I heard a lot of people say they like the second one more than the first one.
Yeah,
Court of Mist and Fury.
One.
Yeah, I heard. So I figured I'm gonna do the first one, and if I don't like it, I'm gonna keep sticking through to the second one. And if I don't like the second one, I might decide at that point if it's for me or not.
Yeah. I kind of just want to try all of it because I did that with Cassandra Clare. I read the Mortal Instruments series and I hated the first book.
I have no desire to read that series.
You know what? I do have to say, don't.
Yeah.
If you're not interested in it, don't. Because I think like the world was interesting, but like, oh my God, I cannot stand the main character in that series. I can't stand her at all. And I was just reading it and I was so annoyed the whole time. But like the storyline is interesting, you know, like, but just the characters, I was like,
one off.
So if you're not interested in it, definitely don't read it, I would say.
Yeah. Well, I think Leah and I talked a little bit like a while ago about doing a buddy read for The Infernal Devices. I'm going to do that one this summer. I think Leah said that you wanted to do that one too, so we might do that one. I know that we recently talked about, wasn't there another one, Leah, that we talked about doing a buddy read? I can't remember.
Was it Mistborn?
It might have been Mistborn. Yeah, we're going to do Mistborn this summer too. I say summer because I teach, so I'm waiting for the school year to end so that I can actually like have time to really focus on reading a lot more.
That's so good that you're a teacher and you still have time to read. My mom is a teacher and I'm like, you guys do so much. The most, I feel like, underappreciated profession ever. My mom doesn't have time for anything ever.
I actually teach I teach English composition to college students. So I'm I don't like to say professor because that makes me sound way fancier than I'm not as fancy as that. I just have my master's. I'll get like doctor and I'm like, I'm not a doctor, guys. But I do teach college freshmen and it is, you know, it's fun, but yeah, it's time consuming and but it's a lot more flexible than like K through 12 or secondary.
Yeah.
Teaching. It's a lot more flexible, but a lot to do. I hate grading. It's my least favorite thing to do in the world. I hate it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Steph asks us what we're currently reading.
I'm reading Aurora Burning by J. Christoph and Amy Kaufman.
And I'm reading The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
I took the dust jacket off, but I'm reading Legendborn.
I think Steph likes Legendborn.
And I'm reading Heartstopper. My lighting's not very good, but there we go.
I know. I'm excited. When are we going to do our next sprint?
I mean, I don't mind. If you guys are up for reading soon, then we can do it like either now in a minute or we can wait another 6 minutes until it's like 35 past.
Even. Those even increments.
I don't mind.
Yeah.
Should we go
I've
now?
never heard of that, but
I've never heard that. I was just looking at that. I think I have heard of it, but I don't really know what it's about.
I think it's like a World War II historical fiction.
Oh yeah, that sounds
cool. That sounds so interesting. Yeah, I've never read that.
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
I used to read a ton of World War II historical fiction, and then I think it got to a point where I was it was just got so depressing that I just had to take a break. I haven't read any in a long time because my heart is just not prepared for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't read too much historical fiction just because of that, because it's just so sad.
Yeah.
That I'm like, I don't want to read something that's going to make me cry.
I never read a historical fiction book before, especially like that is set in World War II or One. But I think because here in Germany, especially because we have the history with what the old German people used to do in the past, and we also visited the, I don't know if it's called in English, the concentration camps. Yeah, right. We visited that, and it was really traumatizing. So I think I can't really read historical fictions because it just makes me want to cry the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, I mean, there's other types of historical fiction too. You can go back into all different time periods that it's not as sad. Like, you know, if you're talking about like British royalty, like the Tudors, and that's not because it's I mean, it was happened so long ago. But I love like Henry VIII, the Tudors. It's like my favorite part of British history. I know way too many random facts about it.
Yeah, definitely. If you guys have like book recommendations on those, I want to read them because every time I've ever learned about it or just even like read stuff online, it's so interesting.
Yeah. I know Philippa Gregory does a lot of a ton of historical fiction about the Tudors, and I've never read her. I don't know how good she is. I have a friend who loves her writing, but I don't think it's always super, super accurate because she's doing it more for a story element, not like what actually happened. So there are some, I think she does take some liberties, but I've heard it's still really good. And yeah,
I should check those out. Based on a true story. See, that's the hard thing I feel like with historical fiction for me too, is that not only is the content so sad, but you have to think that these are experiences that like people went through often, especially with the World War II ones, I think. So I think, that's what makes it the saddest, is that it's not this make-believe story, you know?
Right. You can't separate yourself from it as easily because you're like, this is a real person that this actually happened to.
Yeah.
Or even if it's not a real person, like these were real people, like this actually happened.
Yeah, like real experiences.
Yeah. And not that horribly long ago.
Did you guys read the Poppy War? Oh, sorry. Did you read the Poppy War series?
The what?
The Poppy War.
I've heard of it. I was recommended that book.
Yeah, I haven't read it. I want to, but I'm nervous because I've heard it's really, really intense.
Yeah, because I read the first one, and it's really intense because it's based on some historical facts that happened in China's history, and with some war crimes also that happened during World War II. And I wasn't prepared for it. It was really, really heartbreaking. And I was reading it and I was like, okay, I'll only read like one chapter and then I go to bed. And then that horrible chapter happened and I had to read like 100 pages more so I could go to a better place in the book.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking.
Do you think you're going to continue the series or no?
Yeah, for sure. Even though it's so heartbreaking, but the story is really, really good too.
That's what I've heard. I heard it's a really, really good story.
I wasn't aware that it pulled on true events. I thought, because it gets marketed as fantasy, I think. Is it still like fantasy, just with like elements from history then?
Yeah, it's like fantasy with like feminism involved a little bit in it and some historical events too. Yeah. And I think there's like one paperback version where there's even an interview with the author where she talks a little bit more about that. And there's also like lists of books that you can, and that she is recommending to people who read her books so that you can inform yourself about the history that happened in China.
That's good. That's so interesting.
Right. Are we ready to go for another round of sprints?
Yes. I can.
I'll make myself some tea, but then I'll be back.
Okay.
You just. Are we up for another half an hour?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Like, I want to know what's going on in this.
I know when Chloe was like, hello, and I was like, oh no, you caught me at like a really good part.
I know. I was really hoping. I was kind of looking at the clock because I was like getting to the end of my chapter, and I was like, no, I need to finish this chapter at least.
Right.
Good time to stop.
I thought I'd give everyone the chance to just.
Naturally.
Yeah, I mean, it is like I can understand, especially if someone's wearing like headphones or something, and then I just come along and I'm like, "Hi."
Yeah.
It's actually helpful to me. I don't mind it because I need to
know.
probably get like, oh yeah, because I'm not really even looking at the screen.
I know. How did we do? How did everyone do?
Whew. I just started well, I ended on chapters, not ended. I'm about to start chapter 7. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mm.
And I don't want to be like spoilery, but Evelyn's a character. She you think she's gonna be like, oh, sweet little old lady, and then kind of sassy, and she's kind of like, but she has that like old person personality where like they just say whatever they're thinking and they don't mind looking at you and they don't mind hurting your feelings, not in a cruel way, but just she just says what she's thinking. She doesn't care. She's lived a long life. But then we get into the first chapter of her actual like biography part of like, okay, this is where we're I really liked it. It's again, I've always been a huge fan of like the 1940s, 50s Hollywood. So I know a lot of random facts about like what a lot of women actresses went through during that time and the things they had to do to survive it. And I feel like this is so far capturing that because everything she's saying, I'm like, yeah, I've read about this, like of what they had to do to make. I mean, you read so many things about like Marilyn Monroe alone. But just changing her name, changing her whole background, and just but I love biographies. I'm a collector of biographies, and I wish more real life biographies were written like this. Like that storytelling mode, because some biographies can be a little dry. That's why I like memoirs more. Memoirs are a little bit more relaxed, and the biographies are like, this is when they were born, this is what happened, this is when they died.
Yeah.
Okay. But I also didn't realize that this is the same author as Daisy Jones and the Six, which I've heard a lot about that, but actually I haven't heard a lot about the book. I've seen it everywhere. But I wasn't going to pick up that book because I don't know the cover. I don't know. I just kind of was like, maybe. But if I like this one, I actually might pick up that one. So
I read Daisy Jones and the Six, and I really liked that one as well. It's told in a very different format, though. That one's told in an interview format, so it's actually like it'll say the person's name and then what they say and then the next person. So it's in a completely different format, and that one I listened to as an audiobook, and that one's really good as an audiobook.
Okay, I might try that out then. I want to do more audiobooks, but I'm very, very picky when it comes to audiobooks because if the narrator is bad, I just cannot do it.
Yeah, I'm like that too. But for that one, it's really good, and it kind of feels more like a podcast type of thing.
Cool.
Just the way it is, it feels more like they're just talking to you, kind of thing.
Cool. I might check that out in the audiobook format. How's Legend Born?
It's good. I only read like 20 pages because I started annotating it. And so I was enjoying it. There's a part with her and a cop, and I was like, I'm marking that, and I was like, oh no. Yeah.
We're not doing this today.
I think like in the thing, I was like, like making faces. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far.
Good.
I remember that part that you mentioned with the cop, and I was so mad when I read it.
Yeah, I have like a tab. I do green when something makes me like angry or it's like annoying, and I was just like marking everything. Ugh.
Yeah, I think there's a part that you'll get to. And Leah, you might remember because I don't know if it. No, I don't think you've gotten there where she talks to like the dean or something, and
I'm
just going to be equally as frustrating.
I just read that part right now too, and I was like, wow, it was like the past like 5 pages. I was like, oh
yeah. It goes away from that just a little bit, but I mean, yeah, I don't think she She makes it very clear that this is their experience and this is what they experience a lot, but not in a way that's like, let me shove it in your face. She does. I think she just does it in a really good way. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm enjoying it.
Good.
What about you, Leah? How's your reading?
Yeah, I didn't get so far because I made myself some tea, but I'm at the moment at the part in the book where like all of the different groups that are there and there's like the crew that you're following along, and then there are like 2 evil groups and all of them are gathering right now and it's really tense.
Oh,
And
they
I'm
probably
at the end
stopped
of
in like
chapter.
the juicy part.
Yeah.
What about you, Chloe? Did you finish?
Yeah, I essentially finished hers.
Yeah, I finished it. It was really good. I gave it 4 stars, which is I think the highest that I can give a graphic novel. It needs like a little bit extra to get 5 stars. And then I started well, I didn't start. I've already been reading it, but I started rereading Winter. And I'm like 100 pages into it or something. I've actually been reading this for the whole week. I've just not been reading a lot. So I thought maybe I could get some done now.
Is that a part of the series?
Yeah, so this is the last book in the Lunar Chronicles.
Okay, it looked familiar, and I was like, I think I've seen it in a series before.
What is the Lunar Chronicles about? Because I've heard of it, but I've never actually like looked into it.
It's essentially like retelling. So there's 4 books. The first one's like Cinderella. The second one is Little Red Riding Hood. The third one is Rapunzel, and then this last one is like Snow White. But all of the characters sort of like come together throughout the books. They're like in the first one you meet the ones that are like part of the Cinderella retelling, and then they sort of accumulate throughout. And then there's like an overarching plot of like there's a plague, and they're trying to figure out like if they can get vaccines for it. And then like one of the characters is a cyborg because she's like half human, half robot. So that's like where the sci-fi element comes in. So then there's like, because it's like got the retelling element, there's obviously some romance in it. But it's mainly just sci-fi, sort of like epic YA sci-fi, I'd say.
That sounds so interesting.
It is. I really enjoy it. I think it's one of those series that was really popular like a few years ago, but it's just I don't think it's stuck around the same way that like the Hunger Games has. So I don't see a lot of people talk about it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I remember when I was in high school, like seeing it at Barnes and Noble and stuff, and I remember hearing about it, but I just never actually picked it up.
Yeah, but I think they're making like new covers for Cinder. I sent a link. Yeah, and the new covers look really, really cool. I don't know, I sent a link in a private chat. Maybe I don't know how to share it otherwise.
I got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
See if I can open it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen that one. Yeah, I have.
Yeah, I've only seen the one with the shoe. That's a cool cover. So since Chloe was talking about rating the graphic novels, how do you guys rate your books? Like, do you guys have like a specific kind of like criteria, or just kind of like how you're feeling? How do you guys rate books?
It's a feeling. I'm kind of getting better. Like I watched what's her name? Book It, Beautiful Bookish Bethany. I think I watched her videos, and she had a video the other day of like basically how to review and like some tips. And I was like, I need this because I'm on my channel and I'm like, this book is good.
Yeah.
Read it. Okay, now this book is good. Like,
that's literally.
I just get so tongue tied. But when it comes to reviewing and starring, yeah, it is more how I'm feeling. But I'm nice. I don't know about you guys. I'm too nice. I don't usually give 5 stars. It takes a lot for me to give 5 stars. But I'll always do a 4. And to me, a 3, if I give you a 3, then that probably, I mean, that's usually middle of the road. But for me, it's like, that's mean to me to do. No, I'm super nice when it comes to reviewing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Leah?
Yeah, I like just rate with the Goodreads rating system. So I think 1 star is like I didn't like it, and 2 stars is like it was okay. And so I literally would still continue series if I gave them 2 stars, if they're like on the upper end of 2 stars, basically.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like most of my ratings are like 2 stars and then like 4 and 5 stars. I'm like, okay, this is the book that was okay, and the rest of the books I read, I really love. I don't know. I don't feel like I have a lot of books that are like in between, really.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, what about you, Chloe?
I'm sort of the same as Hallie. I feel like watching, especially when I was watching a lot of booktube, but like I didn't have my own channel, I felt like I was just too nice because there's so many people that just give low ratings. And there's like specific booktube channels that like notorious for giving like 2 stars to like a really popular book or something like that. So it tends to, I think my average tends to lie around like 3.8 or something like that. But I don't like, I would usually give a couple of 5 stars throughout the month and then a lot of 4s and 3s. But I don't think I've ever given a book 1 star or below that. I've only ever done 2, but like 2 again is like very rare for me.
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel like if I don't give 2 stars very often, but if I give it 2 stars because like I did not like it. I only think I've ever given one book 1 star, and that was like I hated it and I only finished it because I was buddy reading it with a friend and like she forced me to finish it. But like I absolutely hated my life. So that's the only book I've ever given a 1 star. But yeah, I used to be like way too nice. I still think I'm like really nice with my ratings. I'm always giving 4 stars. But I used to like, if I enjoyed the book, I would give it 5 stars. And now I'm not like that. Now I need to actually feel like this is amazing. But yeah, I feel the same too. I feel kind of bad giving 3 stars even because I'm like, I know 3 stars is still technically good. You know, it's not a bad book, but when I give 3 stars, I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I've started getting a little picky. I used to be like that where I just gave everything 5 stars. But I actually heard someone say like they don't trust 5 stars because they actually want like a real honest like middle of the road review because I mean there are perfect books to us, but any book can be critiqued. I think you can find anything, even your favorite book of all time.
Yeah.
You can still find something that is just oh, they could have done something here, could have done something there. But I also try now, because obviously we are on BookTube and we're trying to give people books that we think they might like. I try not to just think about myself. Like maybe that book wasn't my cup of tea, but if you like this type of writing, it might be yours. So I take it from that viewpoint as well.
Yeah, I think about that a lot too. I used to just like on Goodreads only look at the high rated stuff, you know, and not actually really read through reviews. But I like to actually read through reviews because some people will say, oh, I didn't like this about it. But I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'll like that because I typically like that in books, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
I like review. I love books with mixed reviews because that really helps me go into it with a clean slate. Like not everyone loved it, but not everyone hated it. So
yeah. I also wish Goodreads did have stars because
I do too.
I'm always like I just read something and I think I was like it's 2.75.
Yeah,
kind of thing. I really wish they did that because it's so hard to just give it a straight number.
Yeah. And then you're nice and you just round up. I'm like, oh, just round up, you know?
Yeah.
And just like the range from 1 to 5 stars is not enough if you want to rate like all of the books that you're reading.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because then it's like I have books that I give 4 stars that were almost 5 stars, but they just didn't give me that 5-star feeling. But then I have 4-star books that I'm like, it was really good, but it wasn't that amazing, you know?
Yeah.
It's just so difficult.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, I'm always curious to see like what people say because I saw something today on Bookstagram. Someone had reposted something about how you shouldn't rate books because they're so subjective. But I'm like, but I don't think, at least for me, like how you were kind of saying earlier, Hallie, like I'm not super offended if someone doesn't like a book that I really love. You know, because I know in my head it's subjective. So if you're giving something 5 stars and I don't like it and I gave it a 2 star, I know in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, because there's just stuff about it she likes. I'm not like someone like, this book is trash. Nobody read it,
Yeah, yeah. Some people are like that though. Some people are like,
Yeah.
this is horrible. But I mean, we have to review because if I'm wanting to look up a book, I want to know the reviews on it.
Yeah.
And I've seen bad reviews about books that they're like, well, the author does this that I don't like. And I'm like, well, actually, I like that. So
Mhm.
again, it might not have been for you, but it actually might be for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, I think it's so important to rate for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mainly use like my rating more as like a reference sort of thing, so that when I'm like 2 months or like a month after I've read it, I won't be able to remember if I really enjoyed it or I didn't. Unless it's like one that I absolutely loved and it's like top tier, or if it's one that I had like a visceral, like, I hate this reaction to it. But anything that's literally like from like say 4.5 down to like 2.5, I wouldn't really be able to remember what it's about, and then I'd end up just saying, oh yeah, this book was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that actually made me think of too. Have you guys ever, because I did this just the other day when I was doing a video, I was filming a video and I was like, oh, I need to go back and see, because I was about to gush at this book. And then I realized, oh, I gave this only 3 stars. Wait a minute. That's not how I feel anymore. So have you ever gone back to a book and you're like, oh, I actually gave that book a lower star rating than I meant to? I guess like maybe I feel
like I'm actually the opposite. I feel like I've found myself more often being, giving a book, especially with like 3 and 2 star. I think that's when I end up giving a book a 2 star. Is that I give it a 3 star because I'm not trying to be mean. I'm like, oh well, I still finished it, because that's my whole thing. I'm like, if I finished it, it can't have been that bad,
Right.
And then like I'll be filming something and I'll be talking about it, and then I'm like, my blood pressure's rising and I'm kind of getting worked up, and I'm like, you know what? Wait, I'm like, actually, I don't think I liked it at all. And then I have to lower it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened to me. I think I gave a book a 2 star. And then I was like filming and I was talking about it, and I was like, you know what? I think I actually should probably lower it to a 1. I didn't, because I felt bad, but I was like, I actually really did not like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's a good problem to have, at least to make it higher.
Yeah. I noticed that I'll start talking about books and like books that I've liked in the past. And I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember anything that happened in this book. Like, I remember liking it, but I couldn't tell you what it was in it because it's been so long since I've read it.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's such a learning experience doing all of this.
It really is. Well, I feel like I now am starting to actually read books more like critically. Because before, when I was just reading for enjoyment, I was just going through it. I wasn't really paying attention to so many different aspects. And I feel like now I'm really like noticing and paying attention. That's why I like to annotate. I feel like that helps me.
Yeah. I was an English major and then I got my master's in literature. So I've critically read books for a good majority of my life. And it's why I don't annotate anymore, because it's ruined it for me.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I will. I mean, if I'm reading a book, like I said earlier, I'm doing middle grade right now. I have left a little notepad near me because I am doing it for a video. But if I'm not necessarily doing it for a video and I'm like, oh, I'll just talk about this in my reading wrap up, I'm not going to make a ton of notes unless something really like sparks in me. So I decided I'm only going to be critical if I'm reading it for a specific video. But I try not to do it too much.
Yeah.
But Sarah, I'm interested in what was the 1-star book? Because you said you only, or do you want to say it?
No, I'll say it, because that book, I am like, nobody should read it. It was the sequel to Call Me by Your Name. Okay. I forget what it's even called.
Find Me, I think it's called.
Yes, I was gonna say it's in the depths of my brain. I've reset like, yeah, it was really bad. It was awful. I think I got through like 30 pages of it, and because me and my friend, we buddy read Call Me by Your Name also, so we read both, and it was the most pointless book. Like, it did not need to be made. That author just he money grabbed. He really just went for it, and it was not good. It was really gross and disturbing, and I hated it. But yeah, that's the only book I've ever like given 1 star to.
What did you give Call Me by Your Name?
I think that one I gave 3 stars.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually wasn't the biggest fan of it, to be honest. But I can see why people would like love
Yeah.
it. It just wasn't for me. I think because my friend, when we buddy read it, she read it for the second time. She had already read it before,
Yeah.
and she loved it. So hers was like 5 stars, and I was like, not really that into it. But
I feel like it's the yeah, I feel like it's the kind of book where you can really, most people will be able to see why people like it or why they don't like it. Like, I really enjoyed it, but I understand because it's really descriptive. So, like, if you don't like descriptions, but it's also quite descriptive in other ways. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not just descriptive word-wise. It's also, it goes into different, like, places that some people maybe aren't comfortable with or just think it's a bit weird. And I was watching a video. I don't know if you know Sabine's Book Nook.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she made a video where she read, because it's Noelle Gallagher's like one of her all-time favorite books, and she was making a video that was like reading Noelle's favorite books, and she was like reading up these quotes. I think she got into like 60 pages into it, reading these quotes, and it was like, yeah, out of context, it's really weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what I personally didn't like. I just didn't love the relationship between them, which I mean, that's what the whole book is about. But I just personally didn't think they were that good of a couple. It seemed like a very obsessive relationship to me, like a kind of unhealthy. So I think that's why for me, I was like, I don't really like it. But yeah, I definitely understand why people would love it though.
Did you guys watch the movie? I didn't watch the movie, but just from the trailer, I kind of saw what you're saying, Sarah, about that kind of unhealthy, codependent relationship, which is kind of what didn't made me want to watch it. But did you guys end up watching the movie? Because didn't it get like an Oscar nom or something? I mean, really well, apparently.
Yeah, I was planning on watching it after I read it, and then I think I just read the second one. I was just like turned off by the whole thing. Yeah, and then I just honestly, it was one of those things where like I had every intention to, and I just never did.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie. I think I didn't even saw the trailer actually.
I watched it, and like I think it's a whole other like board game when you can see it visually and when someone's already like put it all out there for you. And I think it's once again it's definitely very odd and not like everyone's cup of tea, but I think I enjoyed it purely for the fact that I think Timothée Chalamet is like one of the best sort of like classically trained actors as far as classically training like they've got nowadays, because I feel like it's not the same as like it used to be. But he, like, you can tell he's the sort of person that he loves what he does and he's really good at it. So I enjoyed it for that fact. But otherwise, it was, I think, also just because I'd heard loads of people say it was really good, and sometimes when that happens, I just go into it and I think, oh yeah, I really liked it. So
yeah, I definitely, I'll probably watch it at some point. But yeah, it's all right. I'm like, so did you watch Little Women then with Timothée Chalamet?
Yeah, I did as well. I watched it before I read the book, I think. Oh no, wait, actually it was halfway between. I'd read like so basically Little Women, the book is like split into 2 sections. And I'd like mistakenly bought the book, because usually they're like in a bind up. I accidentally bought it where it was just the first book. So I'd read that and I was like, oh my God, is that the end? And I was like, oh, I'm going to watch the film now. And then it was just the whole thing.
And then you're like, wait, when did that happen?
Yeah, exactly. I was a bit confused because it flips between, and I was like, I can't remember that happening. And then it goes back to something I did remember, and I was like, no. And then I ended up reading the rest of the book. But that was really good. That was like, I think everyone, maybe not everyone would enjoy it, but everyone would appreciate it if you're someone that appreciates good film.
I loved it. I have not read Little Women yet, but I love that adaptation. However, I will say the girl that plays Beth, the very first thing I saw her in was where she played this crazy psycho murderous girl. So I the whole time I'm like, I'm not seeing this sweet Beth. I'm seeing what I saw her first in, because she was in the show Sharp Objects, and
I was
she
gonna say, what actress is that?
I don't know her name, but she's psychotic. Right, because Beth is the one. Beth is the youngest one, right? And she's the one that gets sick.
She's the second youngest, I think. She's the one with
I'm gonna look it up.
Gingery hair. I think she's Australian.
Well, whichever one gets sick.
Yeah.
She is the one that I saw in something else, and she plays a psycho. And so it was very weird to watch her be this sweet little girl, because I'm like, don't trust her, even though I know the story. And then I don't know about you, I love Emma Watson. I love her to death. She does. I've just, in the couple things I've seen her where she's done an American accent, she's been a little rough on. Her acting is top notch. Like, her acting is amazing. It's just for that accent, she slips back into the British a lot in her movie.
Yeah. I watched The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and that is like one of my favorite books. Like, I honestly want to reread it because I don't know if I'll still love it so much. But like, it was one of those where I read it when I was young, and it was very like pivotal to me. Yes, and I watched the movie, and the movie was really good. Her accent was atrocious.
Yeah. I'm like, Emma, I love you so much, but why?
Yeah, I'm like, she really needs to work on that, because it was just not it.
I feel like it sounds almost like old-timey, like the East Coast just after they've been colonized or something, when you're going over into the American, but it's still like slightly British.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, for sure.
Americans not do British accents very well either. So
that's
Chloe knows all about that.
I was gonna say, listen, I am really bad. I talk in a British accent all the time in my normal life. And it's awful. It's not a good one, but it's just, I love British accents. That's why I love Love Island. I just love all of it. It just sounds so wonderful to me.
Leah, have you heard any bad German accents in movies?
For sure, but I can't remember it. Or like, he's not a German actor. He is in. Wait, let me look it up. Did you guys watch Django Unchained?
I didn't watch it. No,
I haven't seen it.
I think his name is Christopher Waltz.
Okay.
And he's like an Australian actor or something like that. So he speaks German, and you can always hear it in his accent that he's kind of like from here somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for sure.
Yeah. I mean, which you can't really blame them for doing bad accents. Because, like, you could pay me to do an accent, but it won't sound good, you know?
Yeah. Like, who am I? I know. I'm like, I'm over here judging these people. I'm like, I couldn't do it. I used to try to do British accents for my British friends, and they were like, just stop. Just stop trying.
Yeah, that's why I only do it in the comfort of my own home. I don't think I would ever try to do a British accent for a British person, because I'm not trying to get annihilated like that.
Yeah. And then my British friends will try to do American, and they always sound like a Valley girl. They always sound like, it's just so funny.
Yeah. I feel like that's the easiest. Well, because you know how even when Americans try to do English accents, it's typically like super proper, you know, like type of accent that like most people probably don't even sound like. That's probably why it's for the American accent to go to is the Valley girl.
Harris House, which British accent do you like? Yeah, living in England, you guys have
there's so many
different dialects of British accents. I had a friend from Norwich who I loved her accent. I don't know what area of Norwich is in, what that part is in, but I just remember she was one of my friends who she had a very distinctly different accent. And I always liked it a lot.
I love Essex accents. I could listen to that all day. It's so fun. Like, it's so fun. I could listen to it all day. I think that's why. It's just, I love it.
Yeah.
It's one of the ones that's really fun to watch and kind of laugh at them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, I think that, I mean, I could be wrong, and I don't like want to offend anyone that's English, but I feel like most people would say that like Essex, as far as like the South goes, Essex is like the or like the Essex accent is like one of the lower class ones, or like it's, you know, like the equivalent to like when people are doing the really stupid like Californian blonde, that stuff. So
yeah, no, I mean, I think that's probably why. It's because I clearly have only listen, like when I watch Love Island and stuff, I laugh at it because it's like I'm watching an entertaining show, you know?
yeah.
So that's probably why I like it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I love it.
I should ask Harris House, what is your favorite American accent? Because we have
Mhm.
too.
I know.
Chloe, Leah, what is your favorite American accent
Ooh.
region?
Like, I think Valley Girls are really funny, and
Yeah.
also like when somebody's from Texas or something like that, that
Mhm.
sounds really funny in my opinion.
Yeah.
Especially depending on where you're from in Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ones you always see like in movies and stuff.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I like the really strong sort of like stereotypical ones, like the Texas stereotype, but also like when you're like up in like Wisconsin, that kind of where it's almost
Wisconsin,
bordering on going into
Midwestern.
Canadian, and
Midwestern.
it's got like
The Midwestern accent is the best.
I love that. It's so
Yeah.
funny. I love Boston accents.
oh yeah, that's fun as well.
They're so fun. What's your favorite, Hallie?
I do like the Midwestern quite a bit. And I like, Midwestern's probably one of my favorites, I think. Where you're kind of up there close to, well, I don't know if it's, I guess it's more north. Maybe northern would probably be a better description, because it's like Wisconsin, up Minnesota up there, where you're like very close to the Canadian accent, but like it, that's the one I like.
Yeah, I think that's why. It's so fun. I just love accents.
Yeah,
they're so fun.
So do you guys find, because obviously the UK is a lot smaller, but I do tend to find that generally I can pinpoint where someone comes from. It tends to be like a thing of like, oh, it sounds like it's close to Manchester, or it sounds like it's close to Newcastle or something. Do you feel like you can do that when you hear someone speaking?
Most of the time, I think.
I was gonna say, I don't think so much I can, because obviously I've never been to England, so I feel like I can't do so much like that. Like, oh, that's a Manchester accent.
Oh no, I mean like in the US.
Oh, in the US, you mean? Oh yeah, yeah. You can definitely tell.
Yeah,
I think for sure.
I mean, I can tell a Londoner accent. Probably we were talking about UK, I can always tell a Londoner's accent more so than any other one. But yeah, American, it's pretty easy. I mean, Sarah, I don't know if I would have guessed you were from Texas though, but you're from well, wait a minute, you said San Diego? So you're
so I'm from California.
Sorry, I don't know why I thought San Antonio. I'm like, wait a minute. Well, that makes sense of why I didn't know your accent. California, but Oklahoma, we are between Midwest and Southern, so we're kind of we have that line. So a lot of us don't have very strong Southern accents, which I mean, I've heard I have, and then I've heard I haven't. So
I don't think your accent is very. I don't really hear it, honestly.
Yeah, I don't.
I feel like I sound like a Valley girl. It's really bad. I'm very California in how I speak. And I feel like, especially now being in Washington, and just when I even communicate with my coworkers, because all of them are from Washington, I feel I'm so like, oh my God. And and they're not like that. And I'm like, sorry.
Leah, is there different dialects in Germany? Yeah, for sure. Like in every part we have, there are different ones, but most of the people just speak like High German, I would say. But there's also like some different dialects and stuff. Like my boyfriend can do a German dialect, and some other people too. But most of the younger people and the people who live in the cities, they just talk like the same German.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, city. I think that's an interesting thing too, because you can live in the same region, but city folk sound like, I live in the city, but if you go out into the outskirts of Oklahoma, where like it's the small little podunk towns, they're going to have a whole different accent just in the state. That makes a difference too, I think.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting. Or even just like the slang. When I was in
Mhm.
California, it was just the things I had friends in college who came even from Northern California, and just the things that they would say, the little slang words that they use.
Yeah.
It's so different. It's like we're from the exact same state and you're saying these things and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so fun.
It definitely shows. I was telling Chloe the other day when we were talking on Instagram, I was like, it's so crazy to realize how big the US is until you've lived somewhere else that is not as big.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's massive. It's
The
too
US
big.
is so massive. It's honestly, I agree.
Too big.
It is
Yeah.
insane.
Maybe we wouldn't have as many of our problems if it wasn't so big. I don't know.
Like
What'd you say?
In Germany, you can drive up like from north to south in like 8 hours, I think, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It took me 20 hours to drive here to Seattle from San Diego. But I mean, that's just because I'm like from all the way on the bottom of the US, all the way to the top. But yeah, 20 hours and too long.
Yeah.
It's too big.
Ooh.
It is the sort of sometimes. I mean, the thing is, I'm not even American or anything, but it sometimes scares me to think how big it is of a country, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, it's fine. We'll have like one person that's in charge." Like, granted, they have like little people underneath them, but the same, like, it's one person, and it's this massive, like, nearly a whole continent. And it's like, here you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an experience for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a German, it's also a little bit weird seeing that the US is so big, and yet there are only like two main groups of politics that like rule the land, while in Germany we have like 10 different ones, and we're like not even half the size of the US.
We have other ones, but it's only the two that went out in the end. I mean, we actually have a lot more different political parties, but unfortunately, those just don't get the votes enough for them to really, unfortunately, and that's why we get to be so partisan.
Yeah.
But you're right. Yeah, it's crazy.
See, Australia is massive as well.
Yeah.
Australia's huge.
But then I guess the difference is it's not as densely populated. There's a lot of areas. It's the same as like Greenland, where there's just not a lot of, like, there's areas where you can't really live there. So it's easier if it's a smaller population, even if it's a bigger area.
I really want to visit Australia as well.
Yeah, I've always wanted to do that.
Where have you guys like traveled to? Have you guys really traveled a lot?
Only a little bit.
Yeah.
Because like we haven't had a lot of like family, like growing up I didn't have that many family trips because we've got like family split everywhere. It was mainly just like going to Denmark when we lived in the UK to visit our family, and now it's sort of the other way around, going to the UK. But luckily in the last couple of years I've been able to go a few different places with like school and by myself and stuff like that, especially because I've gotten older. So it's like when I do get money, I can use it. I'm at that nice age where I could use it for something that I wanted to do rather than like bills and stuff like that. So I've been to Turkey. I've been to Croatia. I went to Hawaii and Seattle and Italy. Where else did I go? Oh, I also went to what's it called? To the Czech Republic. I went to Prague. And like by going there, I also drove through like Germany, Austria, all those places. But like, it's not the same as like actually going there.
Yeah.
I think it's also when you live in Europe, you can like visit all of the different. Like you can go to Italy and to France and to Spain. So I have been there also. Like I have been in Italy and France and in Spain, but also since I have like my mom is half Filipino, and that's why I also have been a few times to the Philippines. And if you guys are ever at the Philippines, I would really recommend that you go diving, because diving there is really, really cool. And I have been to Canada, to Vancouver, because my uncle lives there. And Vancouver is also really pretty, and also the nature there.
Mhm. That's so cool.
Yeah, I went to I love New York too. New York was really fun. I want to go back. I went, I think, for my 21st birthday, which that was actually a while ago, if that tells you my age. I don't look as old as I am, but I'm 30 and I went when I was 21. That was my 21st birthday. But gosh, I want to go back because there's so many things I didn't get to see. And out of the US, out of the US, I've been to Wales, China, and then of course I lived in the UK, but I didn't go outside the UK. I mean, I was there as a student, so I didn't really get to do a ton, and I was poor, so I usually got. I just went where I could go for overtrain, like for day trips, and then come back. I didn't really have the money to spend the night anywhere, so there's a ton of places in the UK that I didn't get to experience, and that, I mean, when I go back, I want to go to the places that I didn't get to go the first time around. So I went to a ton of places around the UK, but again, I was in this, what is Kent, like southeast as well, Chloe?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
So I went to a lot of like ocean beach towns, and yeah, saw a lot of literary places. Saw Jane Austen's house in Chawton, and saw Charles Dickens' house in London, and did a lot of literary touring. But US, I've been to Seattle when I was really little. I don't remember anything about Seattle, to be honest. I was really, really little. New York, and then the states surrounding me: Arkansas, Mississippi, Missouri, Louisiana, Texas. So
yeah, that's so nice. I'm just living vicariously through you guys because I don't go anywhere. I've literally never traveled outside the US, which is very unfortunate. And I had planned to, and then the pandemic happened. Yeah.
This will all end soon, maybe.
I know, but I really want to. But I've only been to like Florida and Hawaii, and that's it. So nothing very exciting, to be honest. But I feel like that's so nice about Europe too. I just feel like because it's so much, the countries are so much smaller, that's so much easier, I feel, to go travel to different countries. I feel like in the US, it's such a feat to travel internationally.
It's not like I'm going to hop on this train and go. That's what I love about living in the UK is, okay, I'm just going to decide to do this today. And it was just so easy. And yeah, I really love that about it.
I think that's so fun.
Yeah, and that's also the cool part in Europe, that you can visit all the different countries. You can experience so many different cultures too. And that's what I love about Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the dream, to just go around Europe.
I think she said she was in
I will come to your house. That's your house. Your hometown.
Your house.
Your house. That's not what I meant. I did get to go to, oh gosh, I can't, Ashford? No, it wasn't. I've been to Ashford, but I didn't, that's not where I went. Basically, I went to the town where he got the inspiration to write The Great Expectations. But for the life of me, the name of it was literally like 15 minutes away from where I lived, and I cannot think of the name. Maybe
let's look it up.
Rochester. I think it's Rochester, actually. No. Is it Rochester?
Let me see if I can find it. Oh.
I've been to it. May have been Rochester.
I don't actually know. I can't find it. I thought it'd be easier.
Yeah, I think it's Rochester. And then that's what I went. Anyways.
Your dog is so cute. I miss my dog.
Yes.
What breed is he?
He's a little hound mix. He's got this like barrel chest, so we think he might be some kind of greyhound because he's so skinny, and he's like a little Italian. We call him our little Italian sports car. He's just so skinny and lanky. And we have a lab who is laying down there. He's not as attention getting yet. I'm sure he'll figure it out, but he's just a chocolate lab. But yeah, this one's just a little, boy. And then we got 2 cats and too many animals.
Listen, that's fun though.
Yeah.
How old are your dogs?
Huh?
How old are your dogs?
Archer is our chocolate lab, and he's 3.5. Link he just turned 1 last August. And then our cats are about 3-ish.
Cute.
And there are days where we wonder why we have them.
Got confirmation.
So do we normally do another reading sprint? How many sprints do you do in one of these?
It basically just depends on how much we talk.
Okay.
But I'm thinking, if we do like another one around about now, maybe do like a shorter one, and then we can have a little bit of a chat, and then I think we can end it there because it's getting slightly late for me.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say it's 1 p.m. over here, so.
Obviously, if it was like 1 for me, I would just carry on. Like the first time I did a live, I think it went for like 6 hours or something. So we're just sitting and talking. But yeah, I should probably get some sleep at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we can definitely do that. That sounds like a good plan.
Okay.
So, and you said this one's going to be a bit shorter?
I'm thinking, actually, if we start at like 5 past, we could do like, is 15 minutes too short, or?
I've seen some that have done 15 minutes. I think that's fine.
Because I'm happy to do slightly longer, like between 15 and 25, but it's whatever you guys are thinking.
I don't mind.
Yeah, I don't want to keep it up too late.
Well, we can go for 25. I mean, to be fair, it is the weekend. It's not like I have to be up for school or anything. I think I'm just a bit of a grandma. Like, as soon as I went from being like told I had to go to bed to straight away being like, oh, I want to go to bed now anyway. So I never had that thing of like, oh, I want to stay up all the time.
It's about 3 o'clock here. And
But
yeah, before the pandemic and everything, when I was in my normal schedule, I was a grandma. I was in bed by like 8:30, 9 every single night.
I'm still like that.
Well, it's only now because I work from home, so I don't have to wake up so early. So now I do go to bed a bit later. But when I had to wake up early, my sleep is too important.
Yeah.
In answer to this question, at the moment I'm in Denmark, but I'm from Surrey in the UK. But actually, I'm in quite a cool city because I'm guessing you guys have heard of H.C. Andersen, the fairy tale author.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. There's some people that don't, but like he's like the only Danish author that people probably would have, like outside of Denmark, would know. And he actually grew up here in the city that I'm in. But to be fair, there's not that many cities, so it's like there was bound to be something.
Right.
But that's like quite a big thing. So it's like the same as, if you're in like a city in the UK or like in the US or something, you have like the statues and everything. Here we've got like his house, there's a museum, there's a statue. It's like a massive thing.
Yeah. That's the one thing I liked about the UK too, is just the way you guys preserve history so well. And the fact that I can go and literally look at Charles Dickens' desk and like it's all right there. And we do have that here, but just, it's all kind of like in New York and all those places because that's where our country began, is over there.
Yeah.
We still have over there, but not in the same way like you guys do.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's mainly like the East Coast, I would say, that has all of that, or like Philadelphia, especially.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Nothing
Are we
really
ready?
over here. Oh yes, we can start. Okay, I don't want to interrupt, but I have to go pick up my sister right now, so I have to leave early.
Okay.
I had so much fun. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt.
Oh, it's no problem. It was really nice to have you on here and to talk to you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Yeah. This is really, really fun. This was a good
Yeah.
first sprint for me.
Yeah,
I'm
I
happy
had a
about that.
wonderful time. So thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
You ladies enjoy the rest of your reading and the rest of your days.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, Sarah. I hope we do this again
Bye.
sometime.
I know, I hope so too. Bye.
Right. Back to reading.
Hello.
I had like a couple more lines. I was like, hold on, I'm almost done.
I mean, if that ever happens, just like I would just go ahead with like I've seen people. There's like a group of booktubers that I see that do a lot of lives together. One of them literally just sits and reads, and she can like answer questions as well. She's like, if I need to finish something, I will continue to read it.
Yeah. Ooh.
It's like, especially when I read in English, I have to really concentrate, and I have to have like no sound around me, and I can't like answer questions while reading.
Yeah, I can't listen to anything while reading.
Yeah, me neither.
Although I've been looking at, there's some videos on YouTube that are like background images and like I guess it's called ASMR. Is that what they're called?
I mean, it depends what it is. I think some of them are like ambience as well.
Yes, yeah. So I've been meaning to try that and seeing if I like it, just kind of for that aesthetic feel.
Yeah. I actually recently I could never listen to music before. But recently I've started listening to music, and I feel like it's usually like Taylor Swift. If it's Taylor Swift, particularly like her last couple of albums where they've been a lot more like calm music. Yeah, exactly. Then that's quite nice to read along to. And I was like, I was feeling ballsy one night. I was like, maybe I'll put Green Day on in the background, and then I was like 2 pages in, I was like, no.
You're like, let's start slow with training myself to listen to music.
That sounds like a good idea as well.
Ambient stuff. I love that kind of thing.
Yeah, sometimes I'll also put on like Studio Ghibli soundtrack, like the lo-fi versions.
Yeah.
It's also really relaxing. Yeah. But I can't listen to music where people sing when I read, because then I just listen to the text that they're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. But Taylor Swift's Evermore album and her other one, I've been listening to Taylor Swift's Evermore like every day, all day lately.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, I really like this. But yeah, it is so much more mellow and just it's good listening.
I was so happy when she came out with that, because I feel like people don't realize it, or like I didn't realize it, but throughout her whole career she's been doing like subtle changes. But the thing is, when she went from, because she sort of started off country, went into country rock, went into country pop, went into pop, but when she went from like Red, which I would say was like more on the acoustic side of pop, and then went into Reputation and Lover, I was like, it's so different. And I know there's a lot of people that really like it because it's like music you can dance and sing to, but I've always liked her more country folk sort of stuff. So when she went back to the folky side, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. I think she just released her Feelers album, but in a new version.
Yeah.
I've re-recorded that club, and I really love it, and I feel like 12 years old again.
Yeah. I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm excited to listen to it. I know that when she came out with her Love Story Taylor's version, to be honest, guys, I couldn't tell the difference. I'm like, I know this is supposed to be her now, and like how her voice has matured and how everything's matured, but I did listen to back and back. But I am not a music person, so like I'm probably not gonna get it, but I'm excited to listen to the entire album and see. It's been a long time since I've listened to that that original one though, so it'll be interesting to see what she does. But yeah, none of her albums are the same. They're always just different, which I really like.
I really like it when artists do that. Also, I listen to like a lot of Panic at the Disco, and he, because it started off as a band and now it's like a solo project sort of thing.
Yeah,
their like transition throughout, it's like it's so good. You know that an artist has their own voice when they can change genre, but still you know that it's them. Like if I listened to a Panic song, I'd be like, I know that's Brendan Urie's voice. Like he's got so, and not even just his voice, but like just the way he tells a story throughout his music as well. You know, it's the same thing with Taylor Swift. You'd be able to tell that it's her songwriting, which is just really good.
Yeah, I agree.
William from Paramore. She started out with Paramore, and now she also has some solo stuff, and I really love it. And I think you can also always hear that it's her singing because she has that voice that you know that's her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, she's got a great voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially over the years, because I listened to her since she was on the Twilight soundtrack, basically. And now over the years, her voice got like really clean, and her techniques are really like top.
I feel like there's a lot of artists that are like really genuinely good artists who have been on like soundtracks, and you'd think like based off of that you'd be like, oh, maybe they're like a bit more B grade. But like Taylor Swift was on the Hunger Games soundtrack, and who else was it? There was also someone else that, like Christina Perri was also on the Twilight soundtrack, I think it was, with 1,000 Years. And they're like decent musicians, but you're like, oh, they're on a soundtrack, they can't be that great. And then like they're actually really good.
Yeah. Well, I think it helps that those are big budget movies, and you know they probably have the money to get really big famous people to do it. But I mean, the first Twilight movie, which of course Christina Perri I think sang it for their last movie when they got married, that was like what it played when she was walking down. But I remember the first Twilight movie wasn't horribly like the budget anyways was not horribly huge.
No.
It was so. And they had, I think they had, is it the Muse that was on the first?
Yeah.
The first movie? Yeah.
Yeah, the Supermassive Black Hole song. I still listen to that soundtrack because I think, well, the movie is like I feel like Twilight is like an indie movie. It feels like it a little bit.
Yeah, the first one definitely, yeah.
And it's not the best movie, but it's still, I don't know, cute. But the soundtrack is really good in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I still re-listen to that.
I remember listening to the soundtrack when it first came out, and I actually really, really liked it. I thought they did pretty well. And you're so right; it had that indie feel to it. But I mean, I ate all when I was younger, and Twilight came out, which it came out when I was, I think, a senior in high school, and I ate those books up. I devoured them. So, I love them so much. Now I've moved on, you know, but probably won't see. I don't see myself ever going back to them because I just feel like that's just not, you know, I was a teenager, so obviously it's the appeal, but
yeah, also they didn't age really, really good.
No, I've always thought that you know, and it's really hard because when you're an English major, you do learn how to read super critically, and it can actually kind of hurt you a little bit because sometimes I can't just enjoy the story. I'm like, this writing and da-da-da. And so I think that's why I became more critical of Stephenie Meyer's writing. But I think she's a good storyteller, and that's probably what got me into those books is the storytelling ability. The writing ability is not my favorite, but the storytelling. And that's really all. I mean, I haven't really kept up with her, and I don't plan on reading that new books that she wrote just because, again, I feel like isn't Midnight Sun? Yeah. I feel like I'd have to read the entire trilogy to do that, to read that one, and I don't have any plans to do that. So
yeah.
There's such a big difference between the books that like people used to read. I mean, even when I was like younger, the books that were sort of like the examples of what life is like, or not necessarily what life is like, because obviously there's a lot of fantasy and stuff like that. But if you compare what people used to read growing up to what there is now, it's so great to see, especially like when I think about my siblings, even though they don't read, but if they were to read, the sort of examples that would be set, like even with like The Hate U Give and stuff like that, having the sort of diversity, also touching on relevant topics, that I just feel like I was never like, I'd never found a book, because it was like, here, have a book that's like completely outside of the world that you live in, whereas nowadays it's a lot more grounded.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what my brother, all my brothers are readers, but one in particular, and he's 15, so it's really interesting to see what he's been reading for his classes. He got an option to read whatever, I don't know, I think he had like a list of books that the teacher said he could read, and he ended up reading the, is it The Scythe Like the first
Oh
one.
yeah, I've got that. It's actually really good. Yeah.
Yeah, and he got to read it. He texted me and he was like, "Have you read this?" And I'm like, "You get to read that? I didn't get to read the cool books when I was in high school." Like, I was a little jealous of him.
Yeah, I feel like when I was younger, there weren't really that many YA books that were like diverse. And when like the whole Harry Potter stuff came in, and after that the whole YA scene just like developed really, really hard, because before there were only like books for child and books for adults, and now it changed completely.
Yeah, and even the older YA, I didn't really know about until I got older. Of like, oh, YA has been around much longer than we realize, but I don't think we realized it until some of these other ones like Harry Potter blew up more. And it was like, oh, okay, this has been around. It just wasn't in our sight. And yeah. I mean, we read like a lot of classics in high school, so we didn't read a lot of more contemporary YA books, unfortunately.
Yeah, we read like really old classics too.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have heard of Enid Blyton. I think she's like very British. The same as like Jacqueline Wilson, that sort of thing. I've actually got the books right here but I think this is probably roughly, I mean, I guess maybe this is a slightly newer one, but she wrote all like the famous five and everything. I'm thinking of rereading these for a video at some point, but this is just something I sort of read.
You guys have a series over there, and Harris House, you might be able to, and maybe it is this author, I don't know, but I remember when I remember living, and I went to a bookshop with a friend, and there was this children's series, and they're like, oh yeah, this is a really good series. It's about a girl or a kid who comes from like a blended family, I guess, and like it was like one of those really kind of inspiring books that like talked about when your parents get divorced and like when grandma dies, and like they like touched on these really important topics that I was like, oh, that's really, really cool. And it was a series of children's books. I don't like, that's as much as I remember about it, but I don't know if that sparks any memory of those types of books.
No, I can't think of any. I mean, to be fair, like I wish that I had the knowledge of like Goodreads and stuff like that when I was younger, because the amount of like books because like if someone asked me, were you an avid reader when you were younger, I would say no, because I can't remember any of them. And there's the same sort of thing. There's this one series that I'm trying to remember because I know that I really liked it. And it was like one that I'd go to the library, and every time I went and got the new installment in the series. But I honestly, my memory is so terrible.
Like these books with any Blyton, you said there were like 5 friends. Is there like a dog also in that story?
In the Enid Blyton?
Yeah.
Oh, in these ones?
Yeah.
Oh, or the Fabulous Five. Or not the Fabulous Five, the Famous Five. I think there was a dog. I don't think I read many of them, but I think it was like 5 kids, and they probably had a dog at some point. It was one of those series that I think she must have ended up writing like literally tens of books. Like it was a massive thing, and it was like one of those sort of like they do something random and then it sort of gets deleted in the next one, and then they do something else.
Wait, I'll Google her because I think I may read her too when I was younger.
I mean, she's got loads. She also wrote the I think it's called The Faraway Tree or something. I just remember someone, because my dad used to own like a little greengrocers, and one of his customers walked in with like a massive crate of just old books. They were all Enid Blyton, and she was like, "We don't need them anymore. If you've got any kids that want to read them." So
that's a cool idea to read those books.
Yeah. I really wish that we had one of those cute little like the little library things that people do where you can go and like switch books, but we don't have anything like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I looked for some in my community and I can't find any, and I'm like, oh, that, because it is the cutest little thing. Because I've got some old books that I would love to donate to something like that, you know. Because we don't have very many like used bookstores, and the ones that we do have are technically chains. and they don't give you anything for the books that you go and turn in. I mean, it's like, okay, here's $2 for 30 books. No, I would rather give them over for free if that's the case.
Yeah.
I would love to donate some books to something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I looked it up, and the books by Enid Blyton is like, the German cover is like this. And yeah, I used to listen to them a lot when I was younger. Like I would always go to the library and get like the next CD in the series.
Yeah, she was definitely Enid Blyton, and then like as I said, Jacqueline Wilson's like also another British one, but she was like a little bit later, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to do some sleuthing and see if I can't find that book series.
Oh, I've tried my best with the one that I'd forgotten, because all I remembered was like, I think it was Gothic, but it was still children's literature, the one that I read. And then it was like basically the Addams Family, but in a book. So when I search all that stuff up, it comes up with the Addams Family film, or it just comes up with like Gothic children's books, and then it's like obviously Coraline, and then like you get like a couple of books down, and then it's giving you like just Gothic, like the Bronte sisters or something. I was like, I don't think children are reading that, but
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I hope you can find it.
It's either that or I just like absolutely made it up. But actually I don't know if I can grab it. There's something really cool, is that one of my old English, or not English teachers, just teachers in general, wrote a whole book series.
Oh, cool.
So I got like, I remember that was probably something that sort of inspired me to start reading more, I think. Just the fact that like when you know that, especially when it's someone that's like got another occupation but's writing on the side.
Yeah.
So that was really cool.
That is really cool. I've been trying to look up more authors from Oklahoma to do a video on it. And every time I've gone to bookstores and asked them, like, I went to this really small bookstore that I thought, okay, these people are probably going to know, because they highlight a lot of Oklahoma authors. And surprisingly, they didn't really know much. But I was like, I want Oklahoma authors that have written like novels and fantasies, but not necessarily about Oklahoma, because I've lived here my whole life. I'm not really that interested in Oklahoma history. And so I'm like, oh, well, here's a book about Oklahoma. And I'm like, no, I just want an author from Oklahoma. They don't need to be writing about Oklahoma at all. I just want an author. So I don't know if you guys have heard of, oh gosh, let me find it, because it's actually a book that's been a little hyped on Instagram, I've noticed. And it's called The Inheritance Games.
Oh, yeah.
So the author's from Oklahoma, my state.
Oh, that's cool.
That inspired me to start looking up more authors from Oklahoma, especially in that fantasy, YA fantasy type genre.
Yeah,
I've already found like 4. But not a lot of authors come from this state, apparently, that I'm interested in.
I feel like it's the best feeling when you like find a book and then you're like, oh my god, now I have an idea for a video. Like I was thinking of, because my most recent video, I think I was talking about Unwind, which is the same, like by the same author as the Scythe trilogy. And that's to do with like organ harvesting and donating and stuff like that. And obviously the ethics behind it, set in like a dystopia. And I was just like, oh, it'd be so cool. Because I know that Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro, I think it is also like a dystopia harvesting sort of thing. It'd be really cool to make a video where it's like looking at different people's interpretations of harvesting organs and like organ transplants and stuff like that. So I've been looking into that.
That's really cool.
Yeah, sounds really cool.
Yeah, especially when you have 2 books that talk about it, so there's that comparison level. I thought about doing the same thing with like books like 1984 and Brave New World, which are both like classic dystopia. They tend to get compared to one another for different reasons. And so I thought, well, that'd be really cool. Kind of the same thing, like you were like, kind of be cool to to compare them, and then also like the ethics of all of it, and like these worlds have the best intentions ish, but does it really succeed?
Yeah, because I was also thinking of like My Sister's Keeper by Jodi Picoult. I've never read any of her books, but that's like the same theme, but like a completely different genre, which would be really interesting. And also, Brave New World, doesn't have sort of a cloning something or other in it? I think
everyone is basically created in test tubes. No one is born.
Yeah, because that'd be an interesting theme as well. I mean, I just like anything sort of medical ethics is really interesting to me.
They genetically engineer you to, basically like if they want you to be a laborer, they're going to genetically engineer you from birth to be a laborer. So they basically choose where you're going to be in society from the moment they create you. And they think birth and love and all that is disgusting. They don't get it because they've never seen it, because no one falls in love anymore. It's a world without emotions, which their whole idea is that emotions complicate things. So it's actually supposed to be a good thing that there are no emotions. But then an outsider comes in and sees all the flaws in that. And it's pretty, I followed that one better than 1984. 1984 was a bit more intense than Brave New World.
I haven't read Brave New World, but I actually saw a play here in Germany once, and that was really fun and weird, but fun.
They did a play of Brave New World?
Yeah.
Oh, that would
sounds
be interesting to watch.
I haven't read it either, but I really want to. That and Fahrenheit, what's it called?
Yeah.
Just all of those classic dystopia books. Also, there's 2 booktubers that I watch who have like a dystopia, like a what's it called? Book club. That's what it's called.
Okay.
They have like I think it's a bi-monthly book club where they sort of switch between reading more modern dystopia and like classics. And there was one that they're reading, I think, last month and then this month, called The Day of the Triffids or something like that, where essentially it's like there's this guy who's been in the hospital and he had like an operation on his eyes or something like that. So he was like blindfolded essentially. And then suddenly, while he was in the hospital, something happened where everyone lost their sight. And he was like the only person really like in his local area that still had his sight. And then suddenly these massive plants start appearing and like eating people and stuff like that, which sounds really interesting.
That sounds wild. Chloe, with your kind of theme of like ethics and medical and all that, Jojo Moyes, also Me Before You, I think is another one about like assisted suicide and the ethics of it. And so because I did read My Sister's Keeper, which is, oh my gosh, like insane. But it reminded me of Me Before You too, because that also goes into like the ethics and the do we let people decide how they want to live and die, especially if they're in a situation where their quality of life is really low. And so that's a really good one too. I recommend if you haven't.
Yeah, that sounds, actually, now I've just got like a million different like medical ethical thing ideas. Also, I read when I was at school, one of the only things that we had to read that I actually enjoyed, because usually I'm very stubborn, I'm like, I don't want to enjoy it. But we read like a short story called To Be or Not to Be, but it was like written with numbers and stuff like that. So it was a bit like sci-fi. It was a dystopia, I think, where it was essentially set in the future where there was like this population control. So essentially if someone's born, someone has to sacrifice themselves and essentially commit suicide, but like assisted suicide sort of thing. But obviously it's not really their choice. It was like, well, for example, my son and daughter-in-law have just had a child, so therefore I have to go and get myself killed. That was a really interesting thing to look at, like again, like population control, because that's a big thing in like Scythe, the trilogy. That was also a population control thing, which I just love dystopia for like the fact that it says so much about the real world while also being so out there.
Yeah, I think in terms of YA, I always I started out with dystopia, with Divergent and The Hunger Games, and then of course the classics. I've always been interested in dystopia, and just like you said, it's more of just a mirror image of our society today. You know, maybe not to that extreme, but there are elements of like, oh, that's what we do, or we're not too far off from that.
Yeah.
You know, or that's not completely crazy to think that it could happen.
Yeah, I feel like people give it a lot of like slack for like dystopia or just fantasy and sci-fi in general, when it's like I would argue for the fact that sci-fi and fantasy can be more not necessarily true to life, but can have more real life values and like mirror the world more than like some contemporary does, because contemporary is supposed to be very like all nice and stuff. And I know they can be hard hitting, but usually like a soft contemporary, you would read it and you're like, that doesn't really happen in real life. Whereas like just even small things like Harry Potter, I remember when we were discussing it in class, is like the idea of like the mudbloods and everything sort of reflecting racism. And you just wouldn't think that when you tell someone there's this series about a boy that finds out he's a wizard and he goes to a wizarding school, you would not think that there would be like deeper meanings in it. So
Yeah, I remember reading that before and being very like, this is getting way too real.
yeah,
Like Brave New World was still a little like I'm like, okay, we're not there, but 1984 was a little too close
yeah.
for
Well, I feel like with especially nowadays with like cancel culture as well, it's not like thought policing, but it is very much like someone says something bad and it's like automatically they're branded a bad person, which is similar to like the thought policing, where if you think something that's against the way that they want you to think, then you're branded a bad person.
Yeah, cancel culture is a slippery slope.
Yeah, I saw that happening with the author, Naomi Novik is her name, I think. She wrote like A Deadly Education. It's a newer book that came out. And there was one thing that they do not print in newer books anymore because it was a little bit problematic. But she also said sorry to everybody that she wrote that in the book. But the whole internet is like hating her right now, or that's what I noticed. And even though she said sorry, nobody accepted her apology, and I think that's really difficult in cancel culture because even if you make mistakes, people will only look at your mistakes and won't forgive you.
Yeah. It's almost like, well, one, I wanted to comment on Discovering Knitting. It does make me sad that movie didn't do well. I love Michael B. Jordan, so I was kind of hoping. I have not read Fahrenheit 451 yet. It's actually on my list for next month, I think. But I already saw it and thought, oh, I bet this is not going to be that good, which makes me really sad because Michael B. Jordan is like a great actor. So yeah, kind of makes me sad. But going back to what Leo was saying about just this kind of culture not being very forgiving. And I understand like you can go too far and it's like, well, you've already, screwed up. But I think that's a part of the reason why I'm okay with not being this huge booktuber, because I feel like they get put under a microscope much more than smaller booktubers do. And because you hear about the booktube drama, and I'm so glad that I'm not in any of that. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't want to know what you're talking about. But it's a lot of that, like you're saying, like one person says one thing without thinking, and it just causes a lot of chaos, I guess.
Yeah, that's why I like that relative to sort of YouTube in general, and then more like obviously celebrity culture, BookTube is so small. Like if you compare, I don't know who like the biggest channel is, but from what I've seen, the bigger channels are around 200,000 subscribers, that kind of thing. Obviously, it's going to be still building up. But if you compare that to the fact that there's like Zoella with however many million, she's got 7 million. Even if you like offend one group of people, you say something that's slightly controversial, it's not going to be like blown out of proportion in the same way that like bigger YouTubers or celebrities would do. And like looking at celebrity culture, it absolutely ruins people's lives because obviously you don't, especially when it comes to certain things where it's like between people where like one person says something about another person, and then it's like, well, do I take the side of the person who hasn't had the chance to defend themselves, or do I believe the person who said it, because you can't tell someone they're a liar for saying something that they believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all such a slippery slope to me. Yeah, I feel like one of the biggest social media spaces is like beauty blogs and beauty YouTubes, and
Yeah,
that's the one where I see people apologizing all the time, and I'm like, aren't you on here just to put on makeup? Like, I don't understand. Like, what are
oh my
you
God.
saying that is so controversial that that it's like ruining your beauty brand?
Yeah, people like James Charles
Oh,
is
yeah.
like the most like he's had the most scandals out there,
Yeah.
the most like beef with people.
Yeah.
I agree with this as well. Especially, I feel like dang it, what's his name? The Murakami. I feel like there's been a whole thing about him being sexist and, you know, the male gaze and everything, which I know that, like, if you look at his more recent work, I haven't read any of his work, but I can imagine his older works, you could, if you're good at like separating what was then and what's now, that it almost, you can't like excuse him for writing the way he does, but it would make more sense. And I think that when people start attacking this author, that clearly there's a reason why he's done so like well in his career with writing. He must be a really good author.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, people like attacking and being like, oh, because he writes in a certain way, that we should therefore not read any of his work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, time period, and just I know that like one of the very first videos I did was a reacting to unpopular Harry Potter opinions. And I was so nervous to make it because I'm like, because of the controversy around J.K. Rowling. And it's like, wait a minute, I grew up with these books. I love these books. I don't want to stop loving these books. You know, does that mean I have to stop loving? And it's almost like I've had like, you have to separate with her in particular, because I think hers is the biggest one because so many of us grew up with those books. It's not like, oh, this new author came out and we shouldn't read them. It's more of, no, this is a staple of our childhood and of who we were and who helped us grow up. And really, she didn't really start being kind of crazy until much later. And so it was like, it wasn't until later on that we started seeing these sketchy things happen.
Yeah.
So I felt like I had to do all these disclaimers of like, you know, if this is an author you've had to separate yourself from, I totally respect that, and like, do you, but I also don't want to be judged because I still love the books for what they were.
Yeah.
You know? So
yeah. I think at this point, Harry Potter as a concept and as a story, because I mean, it's not just the books anymore. It's obviously the film series. It's all of the like amusement park attractions that have been created. It's all of the people who identify with like the different houses and everything. It's almost like a part of the public domain as opposed to just being like her thing. So I think that's one of the things that she's one of the authors where like I wouldn't mention her name. I wouldn't be like, go and read her books. I would say you can read Harry Potter. Right. I have a friend that likes to say Harry Potter written by Dobby.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I saw something on Instagram just yesterday. Someone asked on their story, you know, because I know there's been some controversy with a couple of recent authors, and I don't know enough about it to really speak on it. But they were like, you know, does that ruin that for you? Like when you find out something that the author did, do you just completely say, nope, not going to read it? Or would you still, because the author that they were talking about that's in the controversy, I was like, well, dang it, because I actually wanted to read one of their books. It was on my TBR, and I guess I'm like, do I now? Do I not? Do I, you know? And so but I think it's all about your convictions too. And I think it's all about, again, you have to do you and follow those convictions at the end of the day.
I think it's also important to look at what the author did or not did exactly. Because I heard like in one fantasy series that the author did some sexual assault stuff to some women. And of course, that's an author I'm not going to read them anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
But Naomi Novik, who apologized herself, that's an author I would read again.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It depends on what they do, and it depends on how they handle it after they've done whatever they've done or said whatever they've said. Because, you know, there are definitely parts in my life where I've said something without thinking and thinking, oh my gosh, like what in the world?
I think this is a really interesting comment because I'm someone who it's not that I don't agree with people being trans. Obviously, I can never like understand it.
Sure.
But I try my best to like when someone says something, because there's a difference between silently not agreeing with it but accepting people for who they are and being outwardly transphobic and stuff like that. And it's something that like really doesn't sit right with me. It's like, why would someone say something bad about someone based on something that they can't change? But it's nice to see someone who says that they don't necessarily agree with it, but they can still appreciate it, because I don't like, I've spoken with people before who said that their religion, you know, goes against people being gay or whatever it is, but that they can still accept someone for being who they are, which I really like.
Yeah, and so, you know, how does it benefit you personally to be horrible and cruel and things like that, you know?
Yeah.
It doesn't benefit you, it doesn't benefit them.
Exactly.
You know, and if someone, if like a person came to me and said, you know, hey, let's have a one-on-one talk, what do you really think? Then that's different, because it's just you and me, and we're going to have hopefully this deep talk, and you can understand my side, I can understand your side. That's a whole different thing when you're getting out there and just trashing people publicly, and that's not helpful to anybody.
Yeah, that was just really the problem with J.K. Rowling, because she has such a big platform and yet she used it in such a harmful way. And even though she has like no right in that sense to talk about trans stuff, because she's not trans, and she was really hurtful. Because I read her article that she published on her website actually about her opinion on it. And what was really stupid about that article was that she always wrote like, I support trans people and rights and everything, but then in the next sentence she would write something like but, and then like kind of take away what she just said before in that other sentence. And it's just so hurtful because she has like a really, really big platform. And I think that was really heartbreaking to see, especially if you read like Harry Potter when you grew up. And Harry Potter is all about accepting everyone. And then she's like the opposite of that, actually.
This is also a really good thing. I've heard a lot of people recently, especially with Murakami, saying that if you want to read things like that for the, I guess for the like literary value that they have, you can buy it secondhand, because obviously you're not like giving them money and supporting them in what they write.
Could you also, does borrowing from the library give them money? I don't really know how that works.
I mean, I guess it's only like there's only one book that's been bought, but then it's not like they don't get royalties on that, I don't think. So it'd be like one book's been bought, but obviously that's already been bought, so they've already had the money for that. It's the same as like if someone like was borrowing it out to their friends or something. Oh, it's Hallie frozen.
Oh,
there we go.
Okay, I'm good. My internet was doing something odd, but now it's not.
This is a really good point as well.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's before the
No, go ahead, Chloe. Sorry.
Before the 2000s, it like, I mean, I wasn't alive before the 2000s, but I could imagine from like what I've seen of what's been published before, a lot of it was more leaning towards like the literary fiction sort of side of things, like the more realistic. And then like going into the 2000s, and obviously Harry Potter is like around about that time, really brought the whole fantasy, sci-fi sort of genres into the mainstream.
Yeah. You said you were alive and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so old.
No, it's me that's young. The problem is I'm 19, but really I am a lot older. Like even when I was like I'd say like in my early teens, I never really. I mean, there are some people obviously that because they're more similar to me, like I can sort of see myself in them. But there's a lot of people my age that I don't really associate or not associate myself. I can't relate to basically because they have different priorities and things like that. So yeah.
Well, you know what's so funny? It's kind of switching subjects so we can get back on our main one. When I lived in the UK, a lot of my friends were very young, much younger than me, like in their early 20s, and I was in my late 20s at the time. And they just all seem so mature for their ages. But I think it's because of how you guys do the schooling system and how you guys like, you know, you can do a lot of like you can drink at 18, you can do a lot of things at 18, whereas we make ours wait till 21. I just feel like you, and I'm sure you've seen very immature 19-year-olds, but I just felt like the young 20-year-olds I met when I was in the UK were very mature for their ages. And I really do think it's because how you guys do things differently. I just noticed it so much. I was like, oh, I feel like I'm with a peer. Like, oh, they are my peers, but I'm like, I just forget that you're like 6 years younger than me.
Well, yeah, it's because obviously when you give people the liberty to do something, like we've got here in Denmark, it's the legal age is actually 16 for anything that's, I think, 16.5% or under. And then obviously like liquor and stuff like that is 18. But just the fact that people were given the chance, and then it's like here, you, in certain regards, you are like an adult and you can do this thing that like you've thought about, you associate with being an adult. If you like hold it back from people, obviously they're just going to want to do it more. Like it's part of the human sort of psyche, I guess.
Yeah. Take that temptation away early and you're good. I don't want to make discovering Knitting in Harris House feel old, but my mom and dad were born in the early 70s. But they rock, and so do you guys. So
I mean, say that my dad was born in the early 70s. My mom was born in the mid 70s. So
yeah.
But I mean, like I've always, ever since like I had thought of like the whole thing of the like change, the millennium change and everything. I was like, if only like I could have been born 1 or 2 years earlier, just to be like, I lived in the 1900s and now I'm living in the 2000s.
Yeah.
I feel like it's really cool for people that are born right, like say 1999. They have a much higher chance of going over into the 3000s. Like they could, not 3000, not 3000s. God, I'm stupid. Into like the 22nd century.
Yeah. Oh, my daughter's turned 29. I just turned 30 in November, so I sometimes feel very old on like BookTube and Bookstagram, but luckily I've always looked younger than I am. So most of the time when I go into my classes, my students are like, can you teach this? Like, are you not a student? I was like, yep, I can do it. I think anyways.
I was around when dinosaurs roamed the earth.
No. No, you were not.
70s. Early 70s.
Still looking good. Still looking good. Oh. Well, that was fun, guys. It's good talk. We can keep talking, but I just want to say it was good talk.
When I was at school, I used to wonder what the year 2000 would be like. Oh my god, yeah. If you like, it's so funny being someone who's like growing up in this century, because when you watch like Back to the Future, it's like seriously, you thought that in 30 years time or like 40 years time that everyone was going to be going around in hopper cars.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember, and I'm sure Harris House and Knitting remember, because I was 9 going on 10. No, I was 9 going on 10 when Y2K happened, when 2000 happened. So I remember us celebrating, but I also remember there was like a lot of panic because things, you know, I think one of the rumors I heard when 2000 came on was like, all the jails are going to open up and like all the prisoners are going to escape. I remember that being a big one, that there was like a lot of panic around 2000 and none of it happened. Like nothing happened. It was just,
I mean, it got worse really, because like mass incarceration and like that, like the systemic racism associated with that as well. It's just,
societal wise it changed, but not like technology or, I mean, in many ways we did do a lot of different things with technology than the 90s, because I mean, I remember having a cord on my phone and dial up on my internet, and I remember all of that. So I was still around at that point.
I will say, at least I was alive when the first iPhone came out, and I did not grow up on an iPad, because that's what my sister, like my 8-year-old sister, she just literally, I think she got my mum's old iPad when she was like 5 or something. So that's just what she's grown up with. Whereas like, my mum used to have to put me in front of the box TV and then like put in the oh God, what's it called? The tape thingy, and then she would like, it would get to the end, and then I'd be like, I want to watch it again. So she'd
you're VCR, the VCR.
Yeah, she'd sit there, because that was like just as, so I was growing up just as it sort of switched over to like CDs and DVDs and stuff like that.
I think it depends too on how long your family tried to hold on to the old technology too. So,
well, I grew up in like, my mum basically, not to like give my mum's whole backstory or anything, but because she moved from Denmark when she was 19, and I think that was when she stayed in the UK, and she just like, she was on like a lower paying job, she was a single mum and like not living in the best area, so it was like, I think we didn't really have much choice. But
yeah.
I mean, even when I was like at school, or like when I was at school in the UK, we had to go to like a dedicated room for computers. Nowadays, they're all our students, we're just going to give you a laptop and you can just use that whenever.
Yeah, that was huge. I remember writing essays in school and like in college, in grad school, thinking like, there was a time where people had to handwrite their essays and papers, and I'm like, that's insane. Like that is an insane idea to me. I had some professors in college who were like, yes, I was one of those people who had to write on like a typewriter or just, you know, the hard way.
I feel like, sorry, you can.
Or even like writing just like exams or papers for uni or school, you would have to go to the library. You couldn't even Google like a few topics before you went to the library. It must be really like time consuming back then.
Yeah. We are so spoiled now.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's like, I feel like people probably had more appreciation for what they were writing. When you have to do it by hand, you think about it a lot more. That's why they say like it's a lot better to take notes by hand rather than typing it on the computer, because people nowadays, especially like Gen Z, they're like this and they're not even looking at the screen.
Yeah, I just talked to my students the other day about how taking notes physically is for better retention. I don't know if they listen to me, but I don't know if they listen to me about anything, to be honest. I can only try so much. College being equipped for the internet wasn't a credible. It really isn't still a credible source. I mean, for the most part, I usually have my students go to the academic databases and get their sources from there. And we have like a whole discussion on like why we don't use Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And I've still had students try to use Wikipedia and I'm like, nope, you're not using Wikipedia. That is not a credible source. But I do try to minimize how much they use internet websites. I try to have them go the databases first.
I mean, we have to for our like I've only written one project so far at uni, but I'm studying medicine, and obviously like it'd be quite dangerous if people were out there like writing papers and like finding stuff off the internet, because it's like literally a case of people's health and lives and stuff that we're talking about.
Yep.
I honestly I don't think we're good multitaskers. I think we pretend we are. Because like I'm not gonna lie, I mean, I was on a live with someone else and he said that he genuinely could read and watch TV at the same time. And I was like, and he said he could literally like he knew what was happening in the book and knew what was happening on the screen, which like fine, it could happen for like one person or whatever, but I think in general, like no one can multitask. Your brain is great and it can do so many things, but I don't think it can multitask properly.
Yeah. Well, I'm the dreaded millennial in the group, so I'm the one that's ruined the economy and really self-centered, and apparently that is the negative stereotypes of us. But the thing about millennials is that it's such a wide range. Like, you know, it's from like 1980 something all the way to 2000, I think. And it's like, that's a huge range, because I don't feel like I fit a lot of the stereotypes of a millennial.
Yeah.
But
And I'm still a millennial because I was born in 1996.
I feel
well,
like
you're with me. We're 90s babies.
No, I feel like I looked it up and it was like it went from 97 till like 2010 or something, because I think that my sister is like, I don't know what they call it now because they've run out of letters, but
yeah,
something else. I feel like the whole thing with millennials is that you just like the generation before, or like a couple of generations before, is like World War II. Everyone went through a whole bunch of, obviously it was terrible, and then they have that thing of like, oh well, in our day it was a lot worse and blah blah blah. So then seeing the way that like millennials have dealt with things, they're like, oh well, you're just slackers and you're not doing the same, but it's like you haven't got the same situation around you, so obviously it's not going to be the same. You can't judge the same way that you can't judge the way that we've grown up in comparison to the way that millennials have.
Very true. My dad and I have actually talked about this, where, you know, a lot of the slack that we get as millennials, it's like, well, who are the ones raising us? You know, you guys were the ones raising us, so obviously some of that has to come. I mean, I do think it's a generational thing too, but some of it is how you were raised individually.
I think there's a lot of fearlessness in the fact of like being yourself. I think we're the first generation that truly is like, we're going to do what we want and we're going to be who we want to be. But like I live with a lot of fear, because obviously I've grown up in a world where there's like terrorism now leading on to like cyber terrorism, like everyone can be affected by it. I think there's never going to be any generation that truly is like fearless in that sense, but I definitely agree that people are like so much more themselves. Well, we've really gotten onto like a topic that's completely different to what we started with.
I think that's how these long conversations go.
Yeah, well, yeah,
it's
usually like I'll be having a conversation with someone, and then just me being me, it ends up being like either something to do with surgery or something to do with like a horror film or something just like really macabre. And then it's like, how did we get onto this? And it's like, oh yeah, I think you said something about like a rainbow or something.
Yeah, that is the story of my life when having conversations. But I think those are the best kinds of conversations.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. When you're like, you have endless things to talk about. And yeah,
we'll definitely have to do this another time. I'm like going to try and do them more regularly. So
yeah, I enjoyed it. I was a little nervous because, you know, your first time, but it was.
Yeah, well, it's also just that with talking with new people, you never know, especially over the internet. I've noticed that everyone has like a different approach to talking over the internet. Some people like just like talk when they want to, whereas I'm a bit more like, I'll wait to hear if someone's finished and then I'll talk, but then I find that someone starts talking just as I start talking as well. So it's just finding, but I feel like just in general, this whole live has gone really well with like the timing and like us talking and everything.
Yeah. I'm so bad about like filling awkward silence. I hate silence. And so I've been told people like, they're like, Hallie, let it be silent. It's okay. And I'm like, I hate it so much. And so I'm learning to like sit back and let other people talk.
I was like especially nervous because I'm not from the US or from the UK, and yeah, my first language is German, and that's why it's always like I hope people can understand me like 50%, hopefully.
Your English is really good.
Yeah, your videos too are really easy to understand.
That's good.
I follow you, and then I think her name's Milena Reads, and I think she sounds really French. I think she might be French, but her accent is very good too. Like I can understand her as well, which is really nice.
Yeah, I really, as someone, because I was like, I always say I was forced. I mean, really, like I could have protested or something, but like my parents wanted me to move with them, obviously, when they moved here. And having to go through that, because I didn't really speak much Danish before, and I had to sort of learn it, and I was just put into the school system like normally, as opposed to like learning it beforehand. So I have a really big appreciation for anyone that's speaking in their second language, their third language, whatever it is, because like it is a difficult thing, and I really understand that.
Yeah.
No. And I mean, there's a lot of people, especially not to generalize, but like obviously English speaking people can get by a lot easier, whereas people who have a different language obviously have to sort of learn English, or at least in the West. So
yeah. Your English is amazing, Leah. It is.
I think I had a conversation with Chloe on Instagram that I thought that like every German who speaks English just sounds like a German potato, and she said every Danish, how do you call it, Danish or Denmark? Danish people are like also like potatoes from their own land.
Oh my god, it's honestly like one of the like. It's because when you compare it, people think that all Scandinavian accents sound like the Swedish and the Norwegian, but they're a lot more like sing-songy, whereas Danish people are so monotone. Like it's just, and then also like just because of the way, obviously, when you try and like translate the pronunciation of one language to another, you have a lot of like weird things. Like in Danish, you have these like stumped letters, so you never pronounce D or L or anything like that. So when people then try and translate that to English, it just sounds very funny, but also just not great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I feel like we're nearing the end now.
Okay.
I feel like it's a nice little bit to end off on.
Yeah.
As I said, obviously, I'd love to have you guys back on my channel again for some more sprints, some more chats and stuff like that. Obviously, we've got the, for anyone that's still watching, us two, along with, I think, like 5 or 6 other people, are essentially doing a buddy read of Jade City. When was it we agreed on it? It was like in May and June. Yeah. And we're going to have a live show at some point, still to be chosen.
Yeah.
But just so that that's out on my channel and everyone knows then.
Yeah, I think the live show discussion is around June 12 or something like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course you did that whole schedule. That was like, as someone that likes sort of schematic, like very like scheduled things, I was like, yes.
Yes, I like that too. I'm going on vacation around that time, so I don't know if I'll be able to make the live, but I'll definitely be reading and talking. And if I can make the live, I don't know. My husband was like, well, we'll be traveling. We'll be just in the car. You can do it on your phone. I'm like, that sounds really complicated. I just might watch the live and chat in the box and do it that way instead.
Thank you very much. And also remember to subscribe to Hallie and to Leah and to Sarah, who disappeared a while ago.
Yeah, mine's Let Hallie Read. I should have made it my little name, but I didn't.
As well as your Instagram. So.
Okay, good. All right. Well, I'll see you guys next time. Chloe, hit me up.
Thank you for being here. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
You're very welcome.
All right, guys, I'm going to leave. Have a great rest of your evening, I guess. Evening for you rest
not
of
your
the day
roommate.
for me.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.